right, it's 5:30.
Oh,
Get
jeez.
this study session started.
You're not messing around, are you?
Mr. Raines?
Wow, he came in strong there.
Comments, Mr. Mayor, to get things started this evening. First and foremost, I want to thank everybody for coming out at 5:30 tonight. This study session will be our regular one-hour study session. We'll be covering two topics related to the proposed parking code and access management standards. And so Paul will take a portion of that. I know that Dwayne and Amy will probably take another component of that. But we do, at 6:30, we'll have our community facility districts agendas that we'll be going through for their budget approval. So this will go from 5:30 to 6:30. But with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Tice.
Thank you. So, as the mayor and council are aware, from time to time, staff brings forth some changes to the parking regulations for different land uses as we kind of become aware that there's a issue or a problem with our current code that needs to be upgraded. But with the adoption of our new general plan, which has a number of action steps related to revising our parking regs, I thought it was a good opportunity for us as a staff to really take a look at rewriting the parking regulations in their entirety. The parking regulations in the zoning code are actually, they're a separate chapter. It's chapter 1756. So tonight what I wanted to do was to brief City Council on the kind of the high-level briefing on the changes that this code amendment is proposing before we take it to the Planning Commission for a formal public hearing, and then, of course, then bring it back to Council for consideration of adoption of the ordinance. So some of the objectives of this project were one is actually to try to limit the amount of paved parking that's provided for each land use to a level that's adequate, but not surplus. And the reason why we don't want to do, pave more areas, create more parking areas than really are necessary is because paved parking can actually have several adverse environmental impacts, including increasing the urban heat island, increasing stormwater runoff, and of course, increasing development costs. So we don't want to do those things unnecessarily. We want to make sure we have adequate parking, but we don't want to really have excess parking if we can avoid it. We also wanted to encourage the provision of electrical vehicle charging stations, and although we did not require in this code the provision of electrical vehicle charging stations, we did encourage them, and we created some development standards that those who do provide them can follow, including giving them credit for the number of parking stalls, give them credit for the electric stalls meeting their parking requirement. We also created some design requirements for specific uses with drive-up lanes for both order boards and pickup windows. We want to make sure that, with our new coffee kiosk in our fast food restaurants and our quick serve restaurants, that we had appropriate amount of queuing and stacking in the for those uses, so that we weren't creating conflicts and traffic jams within the parking lot itself and blocking drive aisles, and even to avoid backing out, backing the traffic even out into the travel lanes. The worst case example we have in this town, well, actually there's two. One is the Little Caesars on Treckle, which some Friday nights back the traffic out into that travel lane, and of course Little Sombreros across the road that can block that drive-through, that travel lane as well. So we needed to make sure we had good queuing and stacking lane requirements. Additionally, I mentioned that the general plan did contain a number of action steps related to modifying our parking codes, and I'm going to talk about those in a little bit more detail in just a second. We wanted to simplify the requirements to make them easy to understand, and hopefully we've done that. We've introduced some additional graphics in there to help illustrate some things. And we wanted, lastly, to update the requirements to reflect, the best-in-class, current best development practices that are out there. So we looked at a lot of codes from other cities to make sure that what we were proposing here for Casa Grande really was the most current and best standards. The general plan does include, I've put 4 action steps. There might be a few more, but these are really the most significant ones, I think. So the top one is that we might reduce or eliminate standard parking requirements in the downtown land use category to promote a higher level of pedestrian and multimodal transportation activity. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the downtown because there are some fairly significant changes in the downtown area. Another downtown one is to revise parking standards for the downtown core area to recognize the unique nature of the parking demand for downtown land uses and multimodal nature of downtown customers and residents, in which address the use of shared parking, on-street parking, transit, autonomous vehicles, drop-off, pickup, and public parking lots. The third action step is the city may reduce or eliminate standard parking requirements in our community corridor land use category to promote higher level of pedestrian and multimodal transportation activity. And lastly, to encourage new development in community corridor land use category to include facilities for electric vehicle charging, autonomous vehicle pickup and drop-off locations. The proposed changes to the regulations, although probably don't fully implement each of these action steps, significantly addresses each of those. So here are some of the specific requirements. I didn't want to go through the code step, line by line with you this evening, but because I know I've provided it to you in your RCA. But no parking requirements were increased. Across the board, no increases. Parking requirements stayed the same for some uses and reduced for others. We did introduce this concept of maximum parking standard that limits the amount of paved parking to 200% of the code minimum. So we think that probably will cover all scenarios where I can't really envision anyone really wanting to provide more than double than what we're requiring, but and probably would be inappropriate to do so. Encourage developments with large parking lots for employees or customers to provide electrical vehicle charging stations, created specific locational criteria. Again, we did toy with the idea of actually making it mandatory to provide a certain number of electric vehicle charging stations for large parking lots. In the end, we settled with just encouraging it versus making it mandatory. But we certainly want to, I think I really want to see how the businesses and the industrial developments in the community really react to that, and if they do start providing them. Of course, even here at the city, we've provided 3, and we have a number of businesses in the community that are already providing them. We made the process for approval of secondary drives and circular drives administrative versus requiring planning commission actions. Sometimes residential homes, they have a need for 2 driveways, sometimes for access RV gate, or sometimes for other reasons, to have circular drives. Today's code requires that we take those to planning commission. I really don't think they warrant a planning commission review, so we've just created some very specific standards that people can follow, and they can just get an administrative approval for those. We've provided more flexible parking requirements for properties in the downtown general plan land use category. So the first thing I'm going to tell you that today in our parking code, properties that are zone B3, all of which are in the downtown area, do have some flexible parking requirements, but everything in the downtown general plan area is not zone B3. So we broadened it out to really cover the whole downtown land use category. Eventually, almost all of those properties probably will be zone B3, but they all have very similar characteristics in terms of their parking demand. So what we did is we provided provisions for allowing the parking requirements to be met either on-site, which is kind of typical throughout the city, but also on-street with, in adjacent roadways and in public parking lots. That's kind of tricky. I mean, all downtown businesses want to just put their parking on street or in the public parking lots, but after a while, we kind of run out of on-street parking and public parking lot parking. We're not there yet, but eventually that will occur. So it's sort of a blended process of providing parking, some on-site, some on the street, some in the public parking lots. We were more flexible with commercial businesses to do this than residential, like new multifamily projects, and we're going to get some new multifamily projects downtown. Those really need to provide a higher level of their parking on-site, and because they have residents that need to park every day. We did generally exempt existing commercial buildings with less than 7,500 square feet of floor area from the off-street parking requirements, other than the need to have like one or two ADA accessible parking. So the small buildings, the freestanding buildings, they really don't generate that much parking demand. We're more flexible in not requiring them to provide on-site parking and allowing them to provide their parking on the adjacent streets. Lastly, we actually created a concept of a fee in lieu of providing parking, where if somebody was doing a development and they had to provide X amount of on-site parking, as an alternative to that, they could pay the city a certain fee per parking stall that the city could escrow to use for purchase of future parking lots, parking structures eventually, possibly, but to create a fund that would allow the city to develop future public parking lots in the downtown area, and even parking structures when the property values get high enough to justify a parking structure. So that's kind of a nice 30,000 foot level of the types of changes we made. And so with that, I'll just open it up for any questions or discussion or input.
Donna, go ahead.
Sorry, Paul, you had mentioned the ADA requirement just briefly, and that was my only question. I didn't see that anywhere in here. If, like, you just talked about the downtown area, and that's the only area that I've really ever gotten complaints on, that there's not enough availability for that. I'm sure we're probably in compliance, but how does that play into the picture?
That's a great question. First off, I'll say that our code does have ADA accessible parking requirements, and they all totally comply with normal ADA standards, right? So, for example, any business that was required to have between 1 and 25 spaces has to have one accessible. As I just mentioned, a business could not, under this proposal, say, oh, I'm putting all my parking on the street and there's no ADA. So they would have to provide some ADA accessible. Downtown, we actually do have some ADA accessible designated parking that's parallel on the street. But everyone does have to provide ADA accessible parking, at least one under this code, and there's also a requirement for what we call an accessible route, which is a route so the person parking their car doesn't have barriers to get to the business entrance. So we are totally ADA compliant.
Okay, good, thank you.
Matt?
A couple things, Paul. A couple things I liked is that there's no increase in requirements, because it can sometimes be a little controversial, onerous for some business owners, especially when you're paying to pave stuff. And the electric vehicle being a suggestion, because I think that's going to be more of a market driven type thing when it makes sense for someone to do it, whether their employees are requesting it or the public's requesting it, or a private company says, I will install this here. So I'm glad that we're not requiring that, but encouraging it, and that's the right way to do it. I don't know that this matters too much, but I was thinking with a lot of the new way of shopping, there's a lot of pickup and drop off, stalls. which I'm trying to think, I guess that's just parking anyway, it's just designated parking. Does that have anything to do, or does that play into this, or I'm sure you guys thought about that?
You know, we haven't specifically addressed it, but it probably would not be a bad idea for us to just have some language that says that pickup stalls for picking up food or groceries or whatever can count towards your required
Yeah.
parking. Yeah, so we should
Because I was
probably
thinking
address
about it, I mean, there are people that are going there anyway, so it's someone parking there just for a short period of time, but I would hope
Right.
that they would be included in the parking numbers.
Okay. Mr. Powell?
Paul, years ago, I don't know if you were here when Serrano's had a Mexican food restaurant right there on Third Street. And it burned down, but while it was in action, people would park 3 or 4 streets away and walk down with no problem with that, just because it was fun to go to and it had good food. If you start looking at the downtown, the behind Third Street dead ends into that big parking lot. I don't know how many cars it'll hold, but it'll hold a lot of them. And behind the building for the veterans, they've got actually covered parking there that is available. I don't know if they'll ever use it, but there's quite a bit of parking in different places around town. We just haven't really had anybody decide to use, but even down by the property across from the churches and whatever, a lot of them have good parking areas.
Totally would agree, Councilman Powell, with that, in that, in the downtown area, we are encouraging both, people to be able to use on-street parking to meet some of their parking requirements, because we do think that, you can walk a little bit in the downtown, it's appropriate, good pedestrian connectivity. And also, we're allowing for kind of joint use or common use of stalls, especially if we have 2 users that they have offsetting business times, right? So that works really well, too. So yes, we are looking at all those things in the downtown area.
Thank you, sir.
And just to piggyback on that, you mentioned something about them paying a fee for future public parking. So it seems like it would take a long time to build up that amount to actually, I know a structure is very costly, but like you said, some of the property downtown, if there is a way to do something sooner and maybe identify it a little clearer, with signs that say, public parking straight ahead, public parking left, public parking, just so people know
Right.
where, because parallel parking, I am not the best parallel parker. I try, and I don't have that car where you just push the button and it just goes back, but so it's difficult for many people. So if we can just maximize some of that land, and especially if it's joint use and
It's quite
some
a
of the
bit of-
buildings, just maybe put some signage before we get to the point where we, raise enough money to pay for some of these public structures and that kind of thing.
So that's interesting, and you're exactly right. There probably are 3 or 4 city-owned parking lots downtown, some of which are very obvious and people know, and some of which people may not really know.
Right.
So, yeah, it's a good point.
Signage would be really
Right.
helpful.
That's a good idea. Bob?
Paul, do these requirements apply to like the development of an apartment complex?
Yes.
Okay, and my question is, did you consider making electric vehicle charging stations mandatory at apartment complexes? At least the development of new ones. I've often wondered how a tenant at an apartment complex, how they go about that. Do they pay to have their own installed, or?
So that's a great point. That's a great question. We did think about whether or not to make electric vehicle charging spaces a requirement, mandatory, or just a suggestion. In the end, we ended up with just, suggesting it, not making it mandatory. To Councilman Herman's point is it's almost market-driven. So, for example, if I'm the owner of an electric vehicle and I'm looking to rent an apartment, I'm probably going to look for one that has electric vehicle charging versus one that doesn't, right? But we certainly, legally can require them. I don't think there's any reason we couldn't if that's really the policy and the direction council wants to go. But for now, we did not make them mandatory.
So Paul, could it be part of your development process, meaning as you meet with these builders and the developer, when you have a checklist, right? And the checklist has a EV check mark, right, that says, did you talk to the developer about electric vehicle charging stations?
Sure, we can do that, and even beyond that, there's some recent grant programs through the Department of Energy that's trying to encourage the
Right.
creation of those. We can even make that stuff available to developers as an informational thing.
Right, well, there's a lot of money available right now for that, actually.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's a very good point, too.
Thank you.
Okay?
Just to follow up that question real quick, I'm
Go
sorry,
ahead.
Mayor.
Go ahead.
Is anybody in town charging at this point in time to recharge with electric vehicles?
Oh, yeah.
The one at
Yeah, they're all
Walmart.
They're all
That's what I was
fee-based.
wondering.
Yeah,
Okay.
They're all fee-based.
Probably ours you have to pay, right?
Ours is fee-based. The one we have, the four we have over here are fee-based, so they have an app.
You're around town.
There's an app, and you can actually pay through the app,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I don't want to take too much time away from the access standards discussion, so I got
Just
some
go
good-
right into it, Paul, go
Got some
ahead.
good input, but I'm going to hand it off to Amy and Dwayne.
Okay. I don't know which one was bigger.
So once again, the Amy and Dwayne show. Done that a number of times. Last, we were here talking about transit, but tonight we're talking about access control. And I think access control is really important, not only in moving traffic, but in safety, more so in safety. I was looking at the fatalities and serious injury crashes on Florence Boulevard, which we all know has horrible access control. And quite a few of them might have been prevented with good access control, people making a left turn when they shouldn't be able to, and so on. So we're here tonight to talk about our proposed changes into our access control policy. With that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dwayne. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, it's good to see you all again. As usual, Dwayne stole a little bit of my thunder on my introductory slides, so I'll breeze through these a bit. Really, a couple of things. I think it's been since about 2007 was the last time that the city really took a hard look at their access management standards. And so I know I've been working with staff for a couple of years, actually, to work through this process. We were here a few years ago, so some of you may remember, and I'm going to do a little bit of a refresher today. But really, the goal of access management is to have a deliberate method for requiring new developments to place their driveways at an optimal location. And when you think about access management, you're going to have different types of standards that would apply to different types of streets. You know, when you think about a freeway, you think about interchanges, right? That's what we would call like full access control. You can't just go on wherever you want. The goal really is to minimize the number of access points for those types of streets or facilities where you're trying to maximize the throughput of traffic. And the reason for that is twofold. As Dwayne mentioned, every time you introduce an access point, you are in effect introducing a conflict point. And so when you think about that, conflict points result in two things. One, it can result in an increase in the number of crashes, which of course then, as you have an incident on your street, the number of cars that you can get through will start to go down. The second reason is that as you increase the number of access points in your corridor, you've got vehicles that are turning into those driveways, turning out of those driveways. They may not be causing a crash, but they could be requiring somebody that's traveling in that travel lane to slow down in order to allow them to enter that traffic. And so those two factors really decrease the capacity of the roadway. In other words, the number of cars that can just travel through that corridor. There's a lot of different ways you can control access management. Really the most common in an urban setting are the idea of a raised median. And I know you've got a lot of those as part of your standards for your new street cross sections. And so Having that raised median and being very deliberate about where you're going to allow an opening in that the median for full access. One of the other things that's fairly important is looking at your corner clearances. And essentially what that means is when you have a major intersection, the intersection of two arterial roadways, you need to be deliberate about where you're going to place driveways in proximity to those intersections. Should you be allowing vehicles to enter or exit the roadway in immediate proximity to that particular intersection? One of the other things that is really consideration a lot of times for infill development is the idea of joint driveway or cross-access agreements where you may have a parcel that could be a smaller parcel adjacent to a larger parcels, and you need to work with those landowners to make sure that you are doing the best you can to allow them to consolidate their access points. And so I've shown this to some of you before in the past, but this is just a little bit of a simulation that we have. On the top, it is providing a demonstration of what something might look like if you were to manage your access versus on the bottom if you were to not manage the access. This is an identical corridor. We took a corridor and we said, as you can see on the bottom, there's a lot of driveways. We said, well, what if we take some of those out, redirect people to other access points? What effect does that have? And so you can see pretty clearly and pretty dramatically that when you start to pull out all of those access points and redirect those people to a consolidated access point or to have access off of a side road, it certainly minimizes the amount of friction. It allows the traffic that's traveling through that street to flow more freely. And so I'm going to cut this a little short because I think you're getting the point. In this particular scenario, again, we're talking about saying there's the same number of vehicles that want to travel through this corridor. We found that without access management, we could get about 5,300 vehicles through. If we start to manage that access, that number goes from 5,300 vehicles to 8,900 vehicles during the same time period. And travel time is cut from 9 minutes to get through that corridor to 6 minutes. So it's a pretty dramatic increase, and I think, and Dwayne, you can kick me if I'm wrong, but I do think that the council has voiced desire to sort of maximize throughput for some of your arterial corridors in the city. And so I think that these strategies are going to go a long way in helping you achieve that objective. So again, as I mentioned, the big things you need to think about. What is the role of that street, or sometimes we call it facility type? Is it really designed to carry through traffic? That often is the case. You have a lot of major arterials. Usually those are on the mile grid system, versus some of those maybe half-mile, quarter-mile streets that are intended to provide a little bit better access. We also need to talk about the spacing between driveways again, right? What is appropriate? It may be more appropriate to have closer spacing on some of those lower level quarter-mile, half-mile streets versus those mile grid streets. And then again, that distance from intersection corridors. So first we're going to focus on the minimum driveway spacing. And we've got two types of access we can provide. One is right in, right out, which basically says you can place a driveway there, and the only movements that are going to be available are to make a right turn into that driveway and to make a right turn out of the driveway. It's still providing a level of access. It's minimizing the number of conflict points. Then we have full access spacing, which basically says you can travel across the street. If there's a driveway on the other side, you can make your right turns, you can make your left turns, full access. What we're trying to do is on those arterial streets, those mile grids, we're going to make a recommendation that those full access driveways be limited to 1/4 mile. So if you've got one, it's got to be 1/4 mile away from any other full access driveway. Now, in combination with those full access driveways, you can have right in, right out spacing at 660 feet on principal arterials, which is about 1/8 of a mile. Minor arterials, a little bit more lenient, 450 feet. Again, minor arterials are intended to carry a slightly lower volume of traffic than major arterials. So it's okay to have a few more conflict points, a few more driveways recognizing that you're going to bring down your throughput a little bit. And then going into collector streets, again, much less stringent at 150 feet for either right in, right out, or full access. So how does that compare? And so here's a couple examples. McCartney Road and Pert Road as an example, they're principal arterials. The old access guidelines said you could have a driveway every 200 to 275 feet. That's that change now that we're saying, no, really, to maximize your throughput, you need to have a minimum of a quarter-mile spacing. So instead of 200 to 275, we're talking a quarter mile now, or 1320, 1,320 feet. You can have 660-foot spacing for right in, right out. So you'll see, generally speaking, it's become a lot more restrictive in an effort to minimize those conflicts. In fact, in the past, the collector roadway, there were not even any defined spacing requirements, so you could put a driveway in as long as Public Works was agreeing to it. Now we're saying we'd like to have 300 feet between those, but at bare minimum, 150 feet. Again, looking at the corner clearances, for those major arterials, we are saying quarter mile. Before, those were in the neighborhood of a few hundred feet. Now we're saying we're going to try to hold that to a quarter mile on either side of the intersection. You could have right in, right outs, though, at 440 to 660 feet, depending on which side of the intersection you're in. Again, collector requirements are much more lenient. So what does that mean? Just a couple examples here of locations where there actually are driveways already in place today. And these are examples of driveway locations where those locations were allowed in the 2007 or the old access management standards. They would not be allowed today. So let's take a look at a couple vacant parcels. This is the intersection of Truckville and Courtson, southeast corner. There's actually 3 parcels here. So we've got the corner parcel and then the other parcel that's just a little bit further south on Truckville, boxed out in red. Neither of those parcels would be allowed to have any type of access based on the current standards. So joint access would be required for those, and there would have to be agreements made with that larger parcel. The other interesting thing is that this parcel does not meet the 1/4 mile minimum requirement for full access. So in effect, the current standards would only allow right in, right out at these locations. So of course we recognize, right, this is an ideal scenario. This is what we're going to try to be recommending and talking to developers and requiring of developers, but it may not be a one-size-fits-all. And so there is language that allows the Public Works or designated staff member to make exceptions to these requirements, usually in conjunction with a traffic impact study, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So here's a couple examples of those types of exceptions that could potentially be made. This one allows that particular parcel to have 3 driveways. 2 of them on Truckville would remain right in, right out, but making that exception for a full access onto Courtson at the far east side of the property. Another option would be to provide a full access driveway on Truckville. Again, we would recommend the spacing. We can achieve the 1/4 mile, but ideally 660 feet or 1/8 of a mile would be preferred. And then having the right in, right out. So this is really just we're demonstrating that there is some flexibility, that there are some options, and we recognize that there are some parcels where we're not going to be able to meet these requirements. Here's another example on McCartney between Tucker and Palomino. There is an existing full access to the Circle K there already, and so the requirements would be that there could only be a right in, right out access additionally on McCartney. Palomino, the parcel would not be able to have access because it is required as classified as a minor arterial. If it were to be reclassified to a collector, then there would be a driveway that could be permitted at 175 feet. So those are other things that you need to think about, right? You may have some classifications in place for some of your current roadways, and you need to take a hard look and say what type of or volume of traffic is it really servicing? and does it make sense to look at reclassification? And I think that, I know Dwayne has asked me a couple of times in the past month about certain roadways, and would it be possible to reclassify those roadways from a principal arterial to a minor or something that would maybe allow for slightly more lenient access?
I mean, it also depends on the use, the land use that's there. For example, that Courtson and Truckle, in my mind, there's an apartment complex going on that corner, and then a medical building on the south end of that building, and they may or may not be able to share in and out, meaning you couldn't share the north side with the south side because it's an apartment complex and it may be gated, right? So it's secure for the apartment people.
That would definitely be the case, and I think those are things that are going to have to be reviewed on a case-by-case basis. I do think in these particular types of circumstances, though, if, as an example, a proposal comes in for that larger parcel, I think that my recommendation would be that you make your best effort to allow for some sort of cross-access agreement for those smaller parcels.
Right. And I think these rules are important, but they should be guidelines. There shouldn't be a rule. That's the way I'd like to see it anyway. I mean, in other words, there should be some leniency given based on what the land use is going to happen. You know, what's going to happen to the land. I get it. I understand, because I like the fact you can put a lot more people on a road, especially Pinal and Florence and those types of roads, where we can get people moving across those major arteries. But I also think we need to be cognizant of the business as well.
Mayor, if it might be helpful also, just so you know, is in this particular example, what we did negotiate with the developer of the apartment complex and the medical is exactly this scenario, a shared access
So
onto
they're going to share
Treckle.
it? Okay.
With, where they came in and the traffic split off to go north to the apartments and
Okay.
south to the,
Yeah, it was another question I had, is how do we encourage people to do that? You know, how do you encourage people to do this shared and joint drive access, you know? So
in this case, we kind of had the same person owning all of it, and they
Okay.
could negotiate, but it actually worked out quite well.
okay,
just so you know.
good, that's good. Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I will reiterate that while these are shown as standards, there is language that allows for deviation from these standards based on conversations. I think it's just a starting point to try to encourage people to think about their site design and see if it's even possible for them to adhere to these standards. I think we
But
had.
how do we get existing businesses to share?
That's not gonna happen.
Well, like, you got Walgreens at Courtson and Pinal, and you got Eva's next door. Why didn't they share? Because that exit coming out, people go left out of that Walgreens parking lot, it's very dangerous.
They were supposed to share, Mr. Mayor.
Oh.
That the agreement at the time of planning and city approval required them, Walgreens would not cooperate in that case.
Okay. Thanks, Paul.
And then here we have just one more example. This is on Florence Boulevard between Hennis and Caceres. And again, this one actually allows for some pretty decent access to right-in, right-out on Florence, as well as a full access right-in, right-out on Hennis. And then what we would contemplate would be at that property line, another full access driveway. So as I mentioned, there is a process. These developments need to go through. They need to submit a traffic impact study, and those studies in and of themselves will look at the roadway conditions, they'll look at the traffic volumes, they'll look at level of service, and they'll look at safety, and all of these things would be a consideration as they go through that approval process and approval for their site driveway locations. The guidelines are customized for Casa Grande. One of the significant changes, the previous requirements for the traffic impact study said you had to do a traffic impact study if your development generated 100 trips per day. Now we're increasing that to 100 trips per hour so that not every small sort of mom and pop has to go through this lengthy process. And we do define a variation in what the area that they need to look at, so just how far out from their development do they need to go, based on the size of the development and the number of trips that they would be expected to generate. So we, yes.
Oh, I just was going to add the 2 or 3 things. The streets that are south of the tracks come in at an angle, and that's one of the things that's messed up a lot of the mid-block where you try to go right or left on Florence Boulevard. The other thing I've noticed is the trifectas. We have 3 trifectas. One on Florence, one on Treckle, and one on Pinnell. And you can see these little cars, if they have 2 exhaust pipes, they got to show you they do. And there's a lot of back and forth and people cutting off other people and that type of thing on those 3 streets, because they're used. And I know we're getting pushback right now from our people that live here because there's so much traffic. And, you know, when you grow as a community and people live here, you feel a little better about that. I think, you know, that's necessary, but it is something that people are upset about now. You can't get across town in 5 minutes anymore.
I completely understand the frustration, and I will say one of the goals of access management is to help, I guess, relieve that perception of the amount of traffic. I think sometimes it's not so much the amount of traffic as the congestion that's caused by that traffic and the delays that are caused by that. So with good access management, as I mentioned and demonstrated, you can actually get more vehicles through at greater travel speeds, more reasonable travel speeds, and reduce that delay, and it kind of brings down that driver frustration quite a bit.
Go ahead, Amy. Go ahead and finish. Sorry, we were interrupting.
You're fine. I will mention one of the new things also on the traffic impact analysis guidelines is we've introduced now a traffic impact analysis checklist, which is a form that developers or the representatives of the developers can fill out. The same questions are asked of any development. It lays the foundation for the basis of conversation between the developers, representatives, and staff. And I think it better frames the expectations and the necessary topics of conversation going into that. So I think it makes staff's job a little bit easier, but it also, you know, coming from a perspective as a private consultant and having done some of these for private developers, it's always nice to have an idea of what the expectations of the city are going to be as they review those applications. So I think this is going to help both sides of the fence. So with that, I will open it up to any additional questions.
Lisa?
Not so much a question, but just a comment, and I'm going to kind of echo what Councilmember Powell just said. I think this is perfect timing. You know, it seems as though that's an issue, is the traffic. With the growth that's going on, it's something that people are constantly complaining about. And so I think this is great for us to have these standards, and I agree there should be flexibility, but I really like that there's standards, you know, so let's really try to, you know, stick with them, but of course you want flexibility. But I think it's great timing, same with the traffic impact studies. You know, of course, we tell people that, you know, there's going to be a study, but it, you know, it's nice, and I really hope we promote to the community that we are doing the access management and the traffic impact checklist, so they know that we're proactive. You know, there's so much development going on our key arterial roads, and so this is going to be critical. So you know, perfect timing. I appreciate all of you taking the time to do this, and I'm just really happy that this is something that we're focusing on.
Good.
So thank you.
Matt?
And also echo that as well. But a step further, since we're working on the Florence Boulevard streetscape, it's a really good time if we're going to be looking at medians and stuff.
Yep.
And the other part about that is a lot of people are against it, but your demonstration really helps to say, here's
Why-
the problem
why-
we
why
have.
it's
that
good, yeah.
What we hear, that you can't get across town fast enough. This will help you to get across town faster, get to your destination faster and safer. So the education part, like a lot of stuff we do, is going to be very important as well. So I know you'll be working with Paul, obviously Paul's department too, but with the streetscape project that we're working on Florence Boulevard.
Well, and if I may mention, a lot of times you'll see pushback from development, right, or developers about, I don't want just right in, right out access, or what do you mean you're gonna take away my driveway? And I think if you can relay the message that this idea of access management is going to make it easier for people to travel the corridor. Sometimes you get to the point where there's so much congestion that people just avoid it altogether, right? And so if you can create a space where people want to, where people, are not frustrated to drive, it's actually better for the businesses that are along
Like
the
not going on Florence Boulevard in the wintertime?
And one that comes to mind is Lowe's, right? Because they have the median, they have the left in.
Yeah.
But there's only the one entrance, and that serves E.G.'s Restaurant, the bank, Lowe's, Home Improvement, and
They have
then,
the back exit too.
yeah, and then they have the back, so, I
Two
mean,
exits.
but on Florence Boulevard with the median,
Yeah, and it works.
it works.
Yeah, it works good.
Now,
Donna?
I have a comment, because when I was reading this, I really, in my mind, could pick out 4 places in our city that, in the last 10 years, that we've had come in that are major issues, that, that people complain about. The one that I get the most is the one at Pert and Florence. And, when you talk about existing businesses working together, and, no discredit to the charter school that's there, but that's the one that I get the complaints about the most, because I live on that side of town too. And I have sat there and watched where there'll be 25 cars backed up from that school onto Florence Boulevard, and you can't get into Walgreens, you can't get into Home Depot, you can't, so I don't know how we fix what's already broken, but I think that that's something that we really need to be serious about, because it's a safety issue. And our city staff has done a number of things when they get complaints about that one intersection. But somebody, it's a safety issue at this point.
It's a slow light there, which piles up the cars behind it to make that turn. And I know the company is really nice about not letting parents come in to pick up their kids after school. They're on Courtson and Pinnell, or not Pinnell, and Florence.
Peart.
But
It's on Peart. Aren't they on Peart? Yeah. School's on Peart, right next to Home Depot.
yeah, it
Right,
is,
right behind
yeah.
it there.
Okay.
Well,
Lisa?
and you talked about the developers pushing back, but
Home Depot
I
has
hope,
the
when they
front
do the
and
traffic
other ones behind.
impact study, they see, there are so many times, there's some intersections, I just go right in, because I'm just too scared to go across the road. So there's many times people will naturally do that because they're worried about having that full access, but I would hope that they understand why. And I know when there is a right in, right out, is that what you say? Right in, right out?
Right in, right out.
Right out, right. You have to worry about U-turns, and, people go right, and then do a U-turn, and, so I'm sure there's danger with all of that, but I would imagine there's, signage that you say no U-turn or whatever, right? If you do those types of access points, but, anyway.
Yeah,
I
unless,
just-
unless you put in medians, you really can't control, you can't control what the public does, because they'll go
I know.
wherever they want to go.
No one's looking.
So, all right, any other questions or comments
you.
thank you, Amy, thank you, Dwayne, thank you, Paul,
Mayor, members of the council.
thank you. Good work. Okay, we're set for 6:30, we're going to adjourn till 6:30? All right, we'll adjourn the study session and we'll re-adjourn at 6:30 for our CFDs.
Does the music start at that time? or-
It starts at 6:30.
6:30.
All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's
To the buildings.
Community Facilities District Board meeting. So I will call the meeting of the Copper Mountain Ranch Community Facilities District Board meeting to order. I'll let the roll call show that all members are present. First order of business is our minutes.
I move approval.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of July 6, 2021. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the minutes have been approved. Next item is new business, considering the approval of resolution number 93. District Treasurer is supposed to give a report. There's the District Treasurer.
Staff is recommending that the Board of the Copper Mountain Community Facilities District consider the approval of a resolution and adoption of the tentative budget and establish a spending plan for fiscal year 2023 in the amount of $20,006,000. This budget proposes property tax rate of 30 cents per $100 of net assessed value for a total levy of $2,512.
Does anybody have any questions? Comments? All right, seeing none, then I'll call for a resolution number, please.
Resolution number 93, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Copper Mountain Ranch Community Facilities District, Casa Grande, Arizona, adopting the tentative estimates for the amount required for the public expense for the Copper Mountain Ranch Community Facilities District for the fiscal year 2022 to 2023, adopting a tentative budget, setting forth the receipts and expenditures, the amounts actually levied, and the amounts estimated as collectible for the previous fiscal year, and the amount proposed to be raised by direct property taxation for the various purposes, and giving notice of the time for hearing taxpayers for adopting of budget and for fixing the tax levies.
Chairman McFarland, I would move for approval of resolution number 93 as presented.
Second. All right, I have a motion and a second. Can I please get a roll call vote, Carla?
Member Lavender?
Yes.
Member Huddleston?
Yes.
Member McBride?
Yes.
Member Fitzgibbons?
Yes.
Member Herman?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Powell?
Yes.
Chairman McFarland?
Yes. All right, that being approved, then I will adjourn the Community Facilities District for Copper Mountain Ranch. And I didn't mention it, but we're going to take these in alphabetic order, so Mission Ranch will be next. All right, call to order the Mission Royale Community Facilities District Board meeting. Let the roll call show that all members are present.
So noted.
I'll call for the approval of the minutes from July 6th, please.
I'll move approval.
All right, it's been moved. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. Next item is new business. This is consider approval of resolution number 69. District Treasurer.
Staff recommends that the Board of the Mission Royale Community Facilities District consider the approval of a resolution adopting the tentative budget and establishing the spending plan for the fiscal year 2023 in the amount of $5,205,500. Included as part of this budget is a property tax rate of 30 cents per $100 of net assessed value. This for a total levy of $100,475. This tax includes only an operational component since there is no debt service to be paid from the Community Facilities District in fiscal year 2020.
All right, any questions or comments of the treasurer or of staff? Okay, seeing none, then I'll call for a resolution, resolution number, please. Carla?
Resolution number 69, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Mission Royale Community Facilities District, Casa Grande, Arizona, adopting the tentative estimates for the amount required for the public expense for the Mission Royale Community Facilities District for the fiscal year 2022 to 2023, adopting a tentative budget setting forth the receipts and expenditures, the amounts actually levied, and the amounts estimated as collectible for the previous fiscal year, and the amount proposed to be raised by direct property taxation for the various purposes, and giving notice of the time for hearing taxpayers for adopting of budget and for fixing the tax levies.
Chairman McFarland, I move approval of resolution number 69 as presented.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Can I please get a roll call vote, Carla?
Member Lavender?
Yes.
Member Huddleston?
Yes.
Member McBride?
Yes.
Member Fitzgibbons?
Yes.
Member Herman?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Powell?
Yes.
Chairman McFarland?
Yes. All right. That's it for our new business, so I will adjourn the Community Facilities District for the Mission Royale District. Next, we have, we're going to do Post Ranch. All right, call to order the meeting of the Post Ranch Community Facilities District Board. Let the roll call show that all members are present.
So noted.
We have the minutes from July 6th of 2021.
I move approval of the Post Ranch CFD minutes for July 6, 2021. As
Second?
approved.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. We'll move to new business, item D1, which is resolution number 50.
Staff
Madam
recommends.
Treasurer.
Staff recommends that the Board of the Post Ranch Community Facilities District consider the approval of a resolution adopting the tentative budget and establishing the expenditure limitation for fiscal year 2023 in the amount of $1,100. Included as part of this budget is a continuation of the existing 30 cents property tax rate of $100 of net assessed value for a total levy of $101. This tax includes only an operational component since there is no debt service to be paid from the Community Facilities District in fiscal year 2023.
Any members have any questions? Okay, seeing none, then I'll call for a resolution number, please. Carla?
Resolution number 50, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Post Ranch Community Facilities District, Casa Grande, Arizona, adopting the tentative estimates of the amount required for the public expense for the Post Ranch Community Facilities District for the fiscal year 2022 to 2023, adopting a tentative budget, setting forth the receipts and expenditures, the amounts actually levied, and the amounts estimated as collectible for the previous fiscal year, and the amount proposed to be raised by direct property taxation for the various purposes, and giving notice of the time for hearing taxpayers for adopting of budget and for fixing the tax levies.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve resolution number 50 as presented.
Second?
All right, I have a motion and a second. Can I get a roll call vote, please, Carla?
Member Lavender?
Yes.
Member Huddleston?
Yes.
Member McBride?
Yes.
Member Fitzgibbons?
Yes.
Member Herman?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Powell?
Yes.
Chairman McFarland?
Yes. All right, that's it for any new business. I will adjourn the Post Ranch Community Facilities District Board. And we will move to calling to order the Copper Mountain, Valago Community Facilities District Board. Let the roll call show that all members are present.
So noted.
And I'll call for approval of our July 6, 2021 minutes.
So move C1 2021 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. Item D, which is our new business, is approval of resolution number 66.
Staff recommends that the Board of the Villago Community Facilities District consider the approval of a resolution adopting the tentative budget for the Villago Community Facilities District and establishing the spending plan for fiscal year 2023 in the amount of $310,975. Included as part of this budget is a property tax rate of $1.4023 per $100 of net assessed value. This tax includes an operational component of 30 cents and a general obligation bond debt service component of $1 and 1.1023 cents.
All right, any questions for the treasurer? All right, seeing no questions, then I'll call for resolution number 66, please, or actually a resolution number, sorry.
Resolution number 66, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Villago Community Facilities District, Casa Grande, Arizona, adopting the tentative estimates of the amount required for the public expense for the Villago Community Facilities District for the fiscal year 2022 to 2023, adopting a tentative budget setting forth the receipts and expenditures, the amounts actually levied, and the amounts estimated as collectible for the previous fiscal year, and the amount proposed to be raised by district property taxation for the various purposes, and giving notice of the time for hearing taxpayers for adopting of budget and for fixing the tax levies.
I also move approval of the Villago CFD minutes from July 6th.
Oh, we already did that.
Already did that,
Just,
okay.
just need the
They're
resolution.
done, yeah.
They're done.
Yeah.
Just need the resolution. I'll entertain a motion for the resolution as just read by Ms. Carla.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve resolution number 66 as presented.
Second?
All right, I have a motion and a second. Gloria, can I please, Gloria? See, I'm conditioned. Carla, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Member Lavender,
Yes.
Member Huddleston,
Yes.
Member McBride,
Yes.
Member Fitzgibbons,
Yes.
Member Herman,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Powell,
Yes.
Chairman McFarland.
Yes. All right, well, thank you, everybody, for your service. The check's in the mail. The meeting is adjourned. All right, we'll stand adjourned until 7 o'clock, and we'll start our regular city council meeting.
Hasta mucho bueno.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the City of Casa Grande's City Council meeting tonight on this May 16th, of 2022. I'll call the meeting to order. Our first order of business is our invocation and our Pledge of Allegiance. I think tonight we have Pastor Kyle Welch from the Compass Church. Mr. Welch, would you mind coming forward to the podium? And then please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
Father, we thank you that we have this opportunity to come together as a city and as a community to seek you, to seek wise decisions, to seek what is good for your people, Father. For we know that everyone in this community belongs to you. And so, Father, we pray that your Spirit would be here, would guide us into what is loving toward others, would guide us toward what is wise, would guide us toward what is good, so that this community, this city, would be known as a place where people can find your face and discover how good you are. Pray that you would be with our leaders tonight. Give them wise minds and open hearts. Pray that you would be with our first responders, men and women who put their lives on the line to serve our city, to serve us. Pray that you would give them protection, that you would give them care. And Father, in all things, pray that we would love each other, that we would serve each other well, and that your goodness would be evident here tonight. We pray this in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Welch. Thank you, Mr. Cowell.
Shirley. I know. Yeah. How'd you get there?
All right, let the roll call show, Carla, let the roll call show that all members are present.
So noted.
Next item of business is our minutes.
Okay, minutes. The Mayor McFarland, I want to approve the meeting minutes from the City Council regular meeting minutes on May 2nd, 2022 as presented, and accept for the record the acceptance of the Planning and Zoning meeting minutes from April 7th, 2022. Also consider the acceptance of the Board of Adjustment meeting minutes from August 10th, 2021. And beyond that, I'd render the claims.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Can I, well, all those, I get a second, right? Didn't we get one? Okay, good. Glad I'm paying attention. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. Next is claims against the city.
Mayor McFarland, I move to accept and pay the claims dated April 27th to May 10th, 2022 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the claims for the May 10th is approved. All right, next is our meeting agenda. Mr. Raines, any changes to tonight's agenda?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, staff is asking that you remove item L1 from the agenda, which is the public hearing in consideration of ordinance 1178.398.1 for the major amendment to the Spanish Trails West Planned Area Development. We were notified by the applicant late Friday that they had asked for a postponement. We've notified a number of the residents in the area as well, and so we're asking that you remove that item this evening.
All right. Any other changes? Anybody on the council have any changes?
Mayor McFarland, I move to approve the meeting agenda as amended.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the meeting agenda is approved as amended. We do have a special presentation tonight. I think I saw Randy here. Mr. Robbins, would you mind joining me down in front here? So tonight we have a kind of a special presentation. We have Mr. Randy Robbins, who's one of our long citizens here in our beautiful city. And I just want to read a couple things that his admirers have put together in terms of some of his accomplishments and things he's done. So tonight, the city of Casa Grande is proud to present the key to the city tonight to Randy Robbins for his commitment to our city. He was born and raised in east side of Casa Grande. Randy was a three-sport athlete at the Casa Grande Union High School. Upon graduation from high school, Mr. Robbins attended the University of Arizona on a football scholarship. He played 4 seasons for the Wildcats and was inducted into their Hall of Fame. In 1984, Randy was the 4th round pick for the Denver Broncos, where he played 8 seasons and was a member of 3 Super Bowl teams, but he didn't win any of them because I was there in Denver watching those teams. And I lost a lot of money, too, I want to tell you. But they were good teams, I will say. I had a lot of fun going to the football games. Mr. Robbins completed his 9th and final season playing for the New England Patriots. Randy finished his career with 13 interceptions, 8 sacks, and 2 touchdowns. That's for a defensive guy, okay? Upon his retirement from the NFL, Mr. Robbins returned to Casa Grande to coach the Casa Grande Cougars from 1996 to 97. In 1998, he returned to the University of Arizona, where, as a graduate assistant, he had a full-time running backs coach position. Mr. Robbins returned to Casa Grande in 2003. He spent several years working for Pinal County, refereeing local games. 2012, he took the job at Valago Middle School as a substitute and student support specialist. Casa Grande Union asked Mr. Robbins to come home as their athletic director in 2014, and Randy hired a young and unknown coach in 2015 by the name of Jake Barrow. He mentored the coach Barrow and both his athletic director and defensive coordinator, and we know what happened with that. Congratulations, too, by the way. Where's your ring?
Oh, it's at home.
I saw it. It's over there. I told him, I said, don't jump in that pool because he might not get out. Randy served on the Casa Grande Union High School District Governing Board. He's currently serves on the board with me, actually for the Board of Directors of the Boys and Girls Club. In 2021, Casa Grande Union High School football team ran the table, 13-0, which we just discussed, winning the 4A state championship. And shortly after winning the state championship, he decided he wanted to finish on top, so he's retiring. Much to our chagrin. Mr. Robbins has made himself available to support his hometown through his career. He's spoken at many community events, assemblies, service clubs. If you want a good motivating speaker, this is your man. That could be your side job.
I'm free.
And I just kind of read, a narrative on Randy's career and all his accomplishments. His most significant impact on our community really has been his gentle spirit, his kindness. Mr. Robbins embraces his role as a professional athlete and never turned down an opportunity to interact with someone who's asked for a picture or an autograph. When speaking with youth, Randy took the time to get to know them, make them feel like they had a friend. He's touched so many lives. That's why we are giving him a key to our city today. So we just really want to thank Randy for all the service and everything he's done for the city of Casa Grande. And with that, it doesn't open anything.
nothing like the mayor putting me on the spot. But first, I want to thank God for everything, for allowing me to be here, because without him, none of this is possible. Second, I want to thank the mayor and the council for this award. I am truly humbled by this. I really am very humbled by this. Third, I want to thank my family and my friends, because, you know, doing the things that I did, you miss out on a lot of family stuff, and they supported me with that. So I want to thank my family and my friends, because you do miss out on some stuff, and them supporting me in that endeavor. And then the last thing, I want to thank the community of Casa Grande. They've always supported me in everything that I've always done, in every endeavor that I've done. This town has supported me, and that's why I've always loved being at home. I will always live here. This is my home. I'm going to die here. And so this community has opened up its arms to me, and especially the greatest thing that I ever saw was, December 10th, 2021, is the fans, you guys, Casa Grande showed up. They showed up for our kids, and that's why I believe we won the game. So again, thank you so much for supporting me, and God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Congratulations again. All right. Next, we have our consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk are considered routine matters and will be enacted by one motion and one roll call vote of the council. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or member of the public so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence of the agenda. So is there anything council wants to remove from consent agenda?
I just want to add the fact that there's a football team sitting on that side of the room right over there.
All right, does anybody want to pull anything off the consent agenda?
No.
Is anybody in the audience who wants to pull anything off the consent agenda? All right, seeing no one, then I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor McFarland, I would move for approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Second?
All right, I have a motion and a second. Carla, can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Lavender,
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston,
Yes.
Councilmember McBride,
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Powell,
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, next item is item H, which is our public comments portion of the meeting. I just want to remind everybody that I will open the floor up for those who would like to address the council. I would ask that you please keep your comments to 3 minutes. We will time you and ask you to stop talking at 3 minutes. So plan your conversation. And then also, please, when you approach the podium, please give us your name and your address for our records. And I do have some speaking cards, and I typically let them speak first. Howard, want to approach the lectern, please?
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, this is going to be a hard act to follow. My name is Howard Fingerroot. I'm the president of Sunrise Land Group. I represent Sun communities throughout the country and all Sun's new attainable housing projects. Two things. First, I'm here to introduce myself and to thank you for letting us have a postponement from today so we can meet with the neighbors, try to understand what their concerns are, and hopefully be able to alleviate some or all of their concerns. So twofold. One, I want to introduce myself and thank you. Secondly, I want to introduce myself to any of the neighbors that happen to be here. So if they would like to talk after the meeting or go outside in the hallway, I'm here to do that. In the meantime, we will reach out and set up a meeting with them. So when we've done that and we've talked to them, I look forward to being in front of you in the future. And again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Howard. Thank you. All right, next I have Mr. Kyle Myers.
Kyle Myers, 260 East Quail Court, Casa Grande. Good evening, Council. My name is Kyle Myers. As I stated, I own K&M Roofing here in Casa Grande for 38 years. I come before you a frustrated citizen and businessman. I'm going to bring an issue before you that you probably don't know about, that has been brought about you before. I have tried to go through the chain of commands and get a meeting with the city, and it's really frustrating that you can't get a call back from departments other than your code enforcement officer, Byron Jackson, and Stephen Weaver, the deputy city manager. And I must tell you, Stephen has been exceptional with his communication, and as he gets to the department heads and back with more communication. But I need to get a meeting, an open-minded meeting, to sit down. The issue before you is, we're not on a level playing field in construction business. We have multiple individuals and business people out doing work that aren't even city licensed. They're not state licensed. I'm not asking the city to take care of that. I want them to take care of the regulations that are in place for them to get a city license and their tax ID number, so we all get on a level playing field. They're paying for the taxes, just like we are, and all the fees and administrative that goes along with it. For me, it seems like a simple request. The regulations are in place for decades. The building department has already done this. I can attest to that for a fact. Back in the late 90s and early 2000s, I brought this before the city. The building department took it right up. Over the years, it's went away, and everybody says, business is good. Why do you care? Someday business ain't going to be good, and I'm tired of competing against these guys. So I just want a simple meeting to be able to figure this out. And I must tell you, from Thursday to Friday, 2 towns, the city of Cooley, town of Caceres, Florence, they're on board. It took one phone call to get me a meeting. They're going to be on board with this. City of Maricopa talked to today. They're going to get a department head to do this. Everybody realizes the tax benefit on your guys' side. Then they realize where it's helping me on my side of the table, put me on a level playing field. And most of them have realized that they're helping the community by getting these road contractors that are working under the radar, licensed in no capacity. I just don't understand why it's so hard to get a meeting to work this out, especially since these adjoining towns have jumped right on board with it. So that's all I'm here today, to speak in the public, and maybe somebody will hear me, and I can just get a meeting to try to work through this. There's been some back and forth, and where the city's involved, I don't know who's telling Mr. Weaver some things, but I take it as a threat. They want a roofing building permit back. We've already fought that. They didn't think it was a good idea. There's so many logistics, and I know some of you council people were involved in that when we did that. I wouldn't be opposed to bringing the building permit back, but if they don't have time to go out for a simple request, maybe once a month, how are they going to go out and do 8 to 10 more inspections a week? Plus, they're time sensitive. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kyle. Yes, Larry, can we make sure that somebody reaches back out to Mr. Myers and follow up on this issue? Yeah, we need to make sure that all of our contractors are licensed. They have to have city license to operate in the city of Casa Grande, as do all of our businesses. So we've had this conversation before. So anyway, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm stopping. Yeah, so I'm being reprimanded because we're not supposed to just have any discussion because it's not an agendized item, but we will have people follow up with you. And if they don't, call me. All right, next. Teresa Martinez, our legislative representative.
Hello, thank you for having me. I am Teresa Martinez. I live at 126 East Key West Drive in Valago. And to Randy Robbins, go Cougars, yay, class of 86. I just want to come up here and just let you know that, as you know, I was appointed to the state legislature in November, so I've been there about 4 months. I did get 3 bills passed, all with probably almost unanimous bipartisan support. One was about fire districts and the merger. That's going to protect taxpayers. We had another one to get doctors paid quicker and sooner. And then I had another one to allow city councils like yourself to have more than one general amendment hearing so that businesses can come in at multiple times. So if you guys need 4 hearings in a year, that's up to you. If you guys only want to stick with 1 hearing a year, that's up to you. Currently, right now, we are in budget negotiations. Our small groups will start next week, I am told. So any last budget items, now's the time. And I-10. I was so happy there to vote yes on the I-10 expansion, the $400 million that Governor Ducey was giving before May 13th, which qualified us to apply for the mega grant of $300 million that the federal government is doing. I hope to come to more city council meetings when we're out of session, and I also would like to let you know that I am open to office hours. So if you'd like for me to come down and help any constituent out with regards to if they need help with unemployment, if they need help with any government agency, that would be the time to see me. Of course, my phone is open to all of you, and I know it's unorthodox, but any of those people who know me know I'm a little unorthodox. I'm going to give you my cell phone number. It's 520-709-2311. Those of you who are not writing it down, it's because you already have it. And I want the public to also have it in case they need me. I'm going to go ahead and do something unprecedented and end before 3 minutes. Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you, Teresa. All right. Those are all the speaking cards I have, and I know there's some other folks here that want to address the council. So if you would like to step forward, please do so. Again, remember, it's not an agendized item, so we can't have a discussion about it, but we can have staff follow up. So please give us your name and your address.
Hi, thank you for having me here. Anyway, Nancy Wood, and I have property at 513 East Beckel Road in Casagrand. And I came up to speak about the Spanish Trails West subdivision and the issue that we have with they're asking for the reduction of ages for the community. I came out here as wanting a kind of more rural, quiet area, and I feel that the agreement that was made in 2019 was with the community of the houses that were close to the subdivision that's being developed. And they had agreed, and it kind of fit in with the area, that it would be the 55 and plus community. And it already has increased the population that would be there. That was what was planned before, because it changed from single families to the manufactured homes. And I feel that changing the age now would actually increase the population again more. So there'd be more traffic, more noise. And part of it is that the development was designed for 55 plus, and I feel that opening it up to the young generation, it doesn't have sidewalks, it doesn't have yards for kids to play in. It really wasn't set up initially as a family community. And I have a real desire that when developers put in communities, that they plan for the kind of communities that are the people that are going to buy there or live there or rent there. And that I feel that they're kind of going back on what was planned, and that I don't think it's always a good fit when you change things that are already designed and built. And they had already started the project, it's almost finished, and now it's changing. And I don't agree with going through this so soon. I mean, it's just, they planned it, the way it was, and to ask for the changes, I don't agree with. So I hope you can consider it when if it comes up of, for decisions in the future. I know it's not on tonight, but I hope you consider that I want it to stay as the 55 plus, or the HUD would be the 20%, which would be down to 45. I think most of the people in the community would be open for that. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
A little taller than I am, so pull the mic. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Mayor McFarland, honorable council members, staff, and community members. My name is Janice Pratt, and I live at 425 East Providence Drive. And like Mr. Robbins, I'm going to stay here until I graduate. Spanish Trails West was to be on the agenda, but there will be no vote tonight. It is my opinion, just my opinion, that if a vote were to be held tonight, it may not go perfectly for Spanish Trails West, and here's why. Citizens from College and Palm Park went door to door to get letters of opposition. It took only a few days to obtain the criteria for the minimum number, plus half again more, to trigger a supermajority vote. After signing a letter, most neighbors kept us in the doorway to share their personal opposition to the removal of the 55 age limit. There are 7 council members. Councilmember Fitzgibbons must recuse herself because her husband is counsel to the developer. That leaves 6. A simple majority vote would be 4. A supermajority vote requires 5. Now, remember my background for who I was married to. I don't understand development that well, but I certainly understand getting votes. So, what's next? One might think that the developer will meet with the Casa Grande folks, make a deal, and bring it back. However, regretfully, Mr. Howard, I don't think this is going to work. The reason being is that Palm Park and College Park really want to keep the 55 age restriction. This is not about pretty development, landscaping, amenities, or operational rules. Because I'm sorry to say this, but operating rules are not law. And when you get a new manager in, new owner, it's easy to change. So we can't rely on that. I want you to all know that as council, you have my complete respect. And I have faith that you, together with the Planning and Zoning Commission, will support developers with compatible communities. Therefore, I respectfully request that the developers drop this request. The zoning conditions promised in 2019 must stand. Dropping the request would be the right thing to do. This is not a win-lose situation. This is a win-win. The developers were great, and they are great at 55 communities. And after this matter is closed, I ask everyone to join me in supporting Spanish Trail's success, and we will all be good neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here who would like to speak to council tonight? All right, seeing none, then I will close the public hearing portion of our meeting tonight, and we'll move to our next item on the agenda, which is item I-1, Community Services. Mr. Steve?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Staff recommends the Mayor and City Council authorize the City Manager to enter into a contract with Lincoln Constructors, Inc. in the amount of $166,672.23 to provide construction of approximately 2,500 linear feet of pipe rail fence at Casagrand Mountain. Staff also recommends an additional budget authority for the project in an amount of $25,000 for city-controlled contingency for unknown issues in the rugged conditions that are present at the mountain site. The total budget authority for this project is just over $190,000. This would be year 2 of a project that we've been starting to eliminate key access points where off-road vehicles can gain access into the mountain park. This was done by removing the current barbed wire fence and constructing a more permanent pipe rail fence. Because of the vast nature of the park, we're trying to complete this in a phased approach, so we're bringing a little chunk at a time every year. The city did advertise for a qualified contractor with an RFP process. Lincoln Constructors was the only submittal. We did do an evaluation period and an on-site interview with them, and then recommended a contract today to the council. Again, this would, total budget authority for this project is $191,672.23. And with that, I'd stand for questions.
Anyone have any questions? I know, Steve, that's that area, also the backside where we were, a year ago cleaning up. So we used to have like telephone poles there, and then they just tie a chain around the telephone poles and move them.
Correct. And this portion of the fence would be on the east side of the park.
Okay.
The part you worked on with our cleanup was
South
on the
side.
south end of the park.
Okay.
And we've done 2 sections on the south end, and then this would be the long section on the east side.
Okay, good. I think that'll help. All right, seeing no other comments or questions, then I'll call.
have a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Powell.
Is any of that in the close enough to the rifle range to be an issue or not?
Other side of the mountain.
So
Yeah,
there's
the
other
rifle
side.
range would be on the west side of the mountain, so.
Okay.
Yeah, this is on the.
On the east side?
This is on the Arizona City side. Okay. All right, I'll call for an ordinance number, please. Carla?
Ordinance number 3332, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Casa Grande, Arizona, accepting a proposal from Lincoln Constructors Incorporated for the pipe rail fence project at Casa Grande Mountain Park, authorizing expenditure of public funds, and authorizing execution of a contract with or purchase order to Lincoln Constructors Incorporated.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ordinance 3332 as presented.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Lavender,
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston,
Yes.
Councilmember McBride,
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons,
Yes.
Councilmember Herman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Powell,
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right. Next, we'll go to item K1. Angel?
Mayor and Council, the item before you this evening is seeking to have Mayor and Council adopt a resolution to set the FY 2023 tentative budget per the attached schedules, direct staff to publish notices for purposes of budget, tax/tax levy hearing and budget adoption, authorize action for contingency expenditures, and designate the Chief Financial Officer to submit the annual expenditure limitation report to State Auditor General. Over the past several months, management and staff have come together to pull together the fiscal year 2023 budget. Was a lot of deliberation, a lot of hard work that culminated in the departments presenting their budget to council at a retreat on the 13th of April of this year. And what we will be presenting to you this evening is the result of the meetings and the collaboration between staff and management in the presentation of the budget for fiscal year 2023. On the agenda, we have a quick overview of the strategic plan, the tentative budget overview. We'll be presenting the FY 23 revenue projections, personnel cost overview, the FY 23 expenditure summary, capital improvement projects, and then your budget calendar that would tell you where we'll be going on from here. The budget was developed under the theme through a renewed commitment and alignment with the long-term strategic plan. We will focus on open communication, teamwork, trust, self-awareness, results, and accountability to improve our community's quality of life, civic pride, and provide quality jobs. And of course, our city's mission to provide a safe, pleasant community for all citizens. The tentative budget overview. The highlights on the tentative budget this evening, we will focus today on the operational and capital improvement program budgets. The budget maintains current service levels with slight increases to account for price changes, along with accommodations for much-needed projects and products and supplies. The budget presents a reorganization of the Community Services Department, where 3 part-time positions will be upgraded to full-time, and along with the addition of 1 full-time recreation coordinator position. In this budget this evening, the city made accommodations to fund the 5-year computer and mobile technology replacement program, installation of hardware to facilitate expansion of Wi-Fi internet access to the general public and to staff, along with adjustments of the current budget for inflation and price increases in the aftermath of COVID-19. Major assumptions: merit increase of 3.25% for eligible employees. It's an average percentage because in the areas where the steps are between 10 and 11, the merit increases are a little higher than 3.25%. Also, we presented in this budget is an update of benchmark positions based on market analysis, and that's in the total of $1.5 million. This topic will be dealt with by the Human Resources Director in a subsequent meeting. Pension retirement rates. We projected Arizona state retirement system rate at 12.17%, and fire and police retirement rates at 12.9% to 9% to 12.9%, and 9% to 10.19% for police. The issuance of the PSPRS bonds has, in the short term, reduced the city's rates, and hence the reason that we will be presenting in our budget this evening lower cost for the PSPRS retirement city contributions than we have in the past. We're anticipating no new revenues, no new revenue items will be presented to Mayor and Council this evening, except for the consolidated fee schedules that present very minimal changes, and that will be dealt with subsequently in this session. General fund state shared revenues for FY 2023. Major state shared revenues are projected at $28 million. Since the preparation of this presentation, however, we received an update from the state that would reflect a decrease of $449,000 in the vehicle license tax projections, for an overall reduction of $185,000, which will be accounted for in the final budget presentation when that is done in June or later in June. Revenue projections. Because of a $16.5 million value of new construction, the city was able to project primary property tax rates lower than they were in fiscal 2022. In fiscal 2022, the primary property tax rate was $1.0148 for a total levy of $4.3 million. In FY23, the city is projecting a rate of $0.9643 with a total levy of $4.4 million. And that is a decrease of 0.0505 of the property tax rate. And that would bring the property tax rate to $96.43 per $100,000 of assessed value. There was much discussion last year on the secondary property tax rate. Mayor and council know that the rate is based on assessed valuation along with the GO bond debt service that will become due and payable in the upcoming fiscal year. Again, due to the impact of new construction, the city is projecting a secondary tax rate of 0.3993 cents for a total property tax rate of $1.3636 cents, which include both primary and secondary tax rates. I'm happy to say that of all of these rates, the city still holds just a mere 7% in the overall tax bill of the Pinal County. Major general fund revenue sources year over year. Again, despite a $158,000 increase in the primary property tax rate, the rate is less than it was in FY22 due to an increase in the assessed value of property along with the value of new construction. Local sales taxes, let me see if I could find the pointer here. There we go. Local state taxes in fiscal 2022, they were projected at $26.4 million. We're projecting local sales tax at $28.4 million, and that is net sales tax, which includes tax reduction for the tax rebate based on development, existing development agreements. And that would bring us to a $2 million increase over 2022, and that's conservative. Funds, revenue, expenditures, and transfer summary. The city's fiscal year 2023 budget projects total revenue of $192 million. The city is projecting to receive $5.3 million in state HERF funds, which is Highway Users Revenue Fund, and is projecting grant revenue funding capacity of over $21 million for a total of $192 million in projected revenues. The consolidated fee schedule, as I indicated earlier, that will be dealt with. Roberta will be doing that presentation on a separate item on the agenda. However, let me just say that all departments who charge rates for fees, their rates will be represented in that consolidated fee schedule. We also include enterprise and governmental activities and services. The rates, of course, are focused on fair and reasonable assumptions, and they are based solely on the cost of performing those services or cost of doing business. They are based on providing operating expenses and reserve requirements for wastewater, debt service and capital requirements, appropriate recovery rate, and customer-based collections and cash flow. The consolidated fee schedule would include animal control, which would be a decrease in that fee. Community services, we will be eliminating fees related to the evergreen community. Planning and development, we would be adding administrative and building permit fees. For police, we will be adding an incident video recording fee. For public works, sanitation, we will be adding residential and non-filled rates. And public works wastewater, adding the word sewer to fee description. Personnel cost overview. At the council retreat on May 13th, Mayor and Council asked staff to present apples to apples in the FTE count by year. We did just that. This chart eliminates all part-time, non-benefited, and seasonal positions to present to council total FTE projected for fiscal 2023 at 446 FTEs. This includes 9 new positions: graphic designer for the city manager's office, assistant planner for the planning and development office, recreation coordinator, and 3 recreation aides moving from part-time to full-time for the community services department, an office specialist, and heavy equipment operator for the sanitation division of the public works department, along with a maintenance worker for the streets division of the public works department, for a total of 446 full-time equivalent positions, not to include part-time, non-benefited, and seasonal positions. An overview of the personnel expenditures for all funds. Total personnel expenditure for full-time equivalent positions, those are positions that are eligible for participation in the state retirement systems, is $44.6 million. Included in this number is a decrease of more than 50% in retirement costs, which resulted, of course, in savings used to offset the debt service on the recently issued PSPRS bonds. Debt service on these bonds in FY23 will be $1.8 million in principal and $559,000 in interest, for a total of $2.3 million. In FY21-22, PSPRS rates were between 49% to 68%, with a large portion of those rates being a result of the city's unfunded liability within the system. This situation was addressed, of course, with the issuance of a $63.3 million of excise tax debt, of which $1.8 million in principal will be due and payable in fiscal 2023. Healthcare changes for fiscal 23. The city is transitioning the employee benefits package from Cigna to United Healthcare effective July 1st, 2022. The United Healthcare rates for the plan year represent an overall reduction from policy year 2021-2022 rates. While there is a decrease in rates due to the transition to United Healthcare, the city's budget is based on current year employee selections that are subject to change with the new open enrollment period. Therefore, the city's projections may not reflect the decrease as calculated based on the new rates that will take effect on July 1st. Going into the expenditure summary. The city's expenditure limitation was set by the state at $248,122,301. The city's budget for fiscal 2023 is set at $253.7 million, of which $56.9 million of that number is excluded from the expenditure limitation. And these exclusions are based on grants revenue, HERF revenue, debt service payments, and prior year approved capital projects. So the city's overall expenditure of $196.8 million does not cause an over expenditure beyond the expenditure limitations set by the state. That's my favorite part, fund balance. It is my favorite part because it not only presents to mayor and council the financial stability of the city, but also the stewardship and diligence that management and staff put into their fiduciary responsibility to manage the city's resources wisely. The city is not sitting on its fund balance. Best practices dictate that fund balance be used for one-time, non-recurring expenditures, meaning that fund balance should not be used to fund new positions or operating expenditures unless these expenditures are one-time items. To this end, the city is projecting to utilize $30 million of fund balance for capital projects throughout the city in fiscal 23. The city is also setting aside the equivalent of 50% of the projected fiscal 23 expenditures plus $5.3 million of PSPRS debt contingency for a total of $37 million in fiscal year 2023. This leaves the city with $21 million of available fund balance that may go toward funding of long-term projects in the future. So here we see we're not sitting on the funds, we're making use of those funds, we're making wise use of those funds on projects that would benefit the community and the people of the city of Casa Grande. General fund expenditures by category. Because the city is a service organization, we understand that the majority of its expenditures is in personnel, which accounts for over $50 million of the total budget and approximately $38.2 million of the general fund budget. Personnel expenditures are closely followed by transfers out, which is a good thing. As I indicated earlier, the city projects to spend $30 million of transfer money out of the general fund into the capital projects fund to fund projects that would benefit the city and the community. As you see up here, police and fire take up the larger chunk of the city's budget. They are the major service providers within the city, and these two departments account for $24 million of the general fund budget, and that's followed, though not closely, by the community services department. Of course, these are service departments. We understand that the city is a service organization, and the city does its best, management and staff, to provide the resources needed by these departments to bring positive change to the city. Expenditures by department. This is an overview of the FY23 expenditure by department. This accounts for all funds, including capital projects. Under this scenario, we see Public Works claiming the largest portion of the budget due to the projects that the city has outlined to be funded in fiscal 23 through generated revenues, which is local sales tax, fund balance, and bond proceeds. So we see Public Works with $118.8 million of that total budget for fiscal year 2023. Capital projects account for $91.3 million of the projected $254 million budget. This means that the city is considering the current growth trend and its position within the county and is proactively allocating resources for the maintenance, development, and expansion of infrastructure to accommodate future growth. Hence the reason for a $91.3 million budget in capital projects. Capital improvement projects. This will give us a brief overview of the capital improvement projects that are slated to be funded in fiscal 23. Again, the largest share of that budget is capital projects. And Public Works, I have a dusty time figuring this out. Public Works accounts for $84 million of that budget. This includes large projects that account for $14 million in wastewater, $4.2 million in sanitation, and $75.5 million in half-street improvements in the Pinal Tech Park, along with $4 million in airport hangar development under the smaller road and facility improvement projects. So the management and staff of Casa Grande is concerned about this community, and we are doing our best to provide the needed resources to fund the projects that are necessary to keep the city going. We're presenting here capital projects by fund class. We have special revenue up here that accounts for $8.7 million of the budget. Special revenue funds are used to account for revenues derived from specific taxes, grants, or other restricted revenue sources. These funds include HERF, Fund 220 grants, CDBG, and other smaller funds. In this group of funds, the city is projecting $88.7 million in capital projects expenditure. On the other side, we have enterprise funds at $21.2 million. Enterprise funds account for activities financed and operated in a manner similar to private business enterprise. These funds include wastewater, sanitation, water, and golf. This fund class has a capital budget expenditure of $21.2 million. The majority of the capital project budget falls within funds specifically designated for capital projects, including vehicle and capital replacement, development impact fees, and grant project funds. The capital projects fund account for $91.3 million of capital projects, and that includes the $30 million that would be transferred out from the general fund into those funds to facilitate these projects. Next, we have a quick look at our calendar. In June, the staff will be presenting to council the final budget for consideration at a special meeting. In July, the fiscal year begins. The final budget will be posted for citizen access. We will be asking council to adopt the FY23 property tax levy and rates, the first reading, and the second reading later in July to adopt the final adoption of the FY23 property tax levy and rates. Also in June, if any increase is being considered, which no increase in property tax that would result in a truth in taxation requirement in a truth in taxation notice is happening this year, so this is not necessary for the city for the upcoming fiscal year. Key dates, tentative budget, which is what we're presenting to Mayor and Council tonight, the publication of the FY23 tentative budget, property tax levies, and notice of public hearings. First publication will go out on May 24th, the second publication on May 31st. Public hearing on fiscal year budget and property tax levy will be held on June 20th. Special meeting to adopt the fiscal year 23 budget will be held on July 5th, and the budget will be posted to the city website before July 12, 2022. On July 5th, we will have the first reading to adopt the property tax levy, and on July 18th, the final reading to adopt the property tax levy. Staff is recommending that Mayor and Council adopt a resolution to set the FY 2023 tentative budget per the attached schedules presented to Council, to direct staff to publish notices for purposes of budget/tax levy hearing and budget adoption, to authorize action for contingency expenditures, excuse me, and to designate Chief Financial Officer to submit the annual expenditure limitation report to State Auditor General. I will pause for your questions. Excuse me. I'll pause for your question.
Okay. Mr. Powell.
The wastewater that showed on there, what are we doing with the wastewater? That goes back a ways. You could tell me on a later day in the week or whatever if you want. I just was curious if we're compiling money toward accumulating water here.
If you could, Mayor to Council Member Powell, if you could give us a few minutes, we will get that detail for you.
Okay. See how good she is.
Go ahead, Bob.
Thank you. Have it?
Are we going to pause for this, or Angel, can you entertain another question?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. On the numbers that we saw for capital improvement projects, Does that include budget authority for the anticipated bond election or issue for November?
The only budget authority that is considered in the fiscal 23 budget is authority of $24 million for the fire safety buildings. We considered all of that, but staff realized that by the time that the election takes place in November, and for staff to pull all the documents and all of the information that is needed to formulate the indenture for the bonds, it might take us well into toward the end of the fiscal year. As such, this funding,
Okay.
that funding was not included in this.
But
budget.
24 million for fire stations is included?
Yes.
Thank
it
you.
is.
Go ahead, Larry.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I want to make sure that I believe that it's $24 million in total for the first year's projects that we had recommended to the mayor and council. And my recollection is that there's $14 million for fire stations and $1 million for trails. And we can give you the breakdown for this, but essentially what it would mirror what our bond program would be for that first year is the allocation.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question, Bob?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions?
All right, so we need to answer Councilmember Powell.
Go ahead.
I think,
She has your answer.
What's that?
we wanting to know in terms of the water restoring?
Do you need Mayor to Councilmember Powell, do you need a breakdown of the wastewater projects?
We're throwing water there, and I know, is that sewer water, or are we getting water from somewhere else, or?
Yeah, and Jill, I think he's talking about storing water, which isn't really your department.
Yes, and Mr. Mayor.
Maybe
Mayor
Mr. Raines can answer that question.
Mayor Pro Tem Powell, I'll give it a shot, Mayor, but certainly there are a number of wastewater-related capital improvement projects in this budget, as Angel had mentioned, nearly $40 million. That is really consistent of a number of projects. One of those projects that is being carried over from this fiscal year is our recharge project, where we will be actually recharging our effluent and earning long-term storage credits. So that is one of the projects, but the lion's share of the allocation is made for solutions to our west side of the community. It's made to expansions at the plant. And lastly, it's made to equalize the amount of discharge that we're allowed through recovery wells, or through recharge wells, to match the treatment amount the amount of treatment that we can process in any given day. So 12 million gallons a day of treatment, 12 million gallons a day of discharge.
Okay.
But we can certainly provide a complete breakdown of every capital project.
What I was curious about is if we're buying water and putting it in the ground, or, I know people are doing all kind of things with water right now, and it's some of it's good and some of it's not good.
Yeah.
The desal is terrible, Mayor. And we really need to get on the pipeline thing to get the water. You can't put water in both of those reservoirs unless you come from the back of them, which you can't do unless you've got that water coming down on the pipeline. So I know it's really a problem for people right now in trying to get those things together, but that was my question. You did answer it, Larry. Thank you.
Anybody else have any other questions for Angel?
Mayor, I don't have a question, but just a comment, and I just wanted to thank you. You know, you guys, you just have so much enthusiasm. I mean, who gets so excited, you know, for some of these slides? But
For
no,
numbers.
I know numbers, no, but seriously, you know, of course, we had our budget meeting, you know, a few weeks ago, and you and your staff are so pleasant, and of course, I thank our staff. You know, we've had a challenging couple years. But, our city has been in pretty decent shape considering, and that's because of the leadership that we have here. Of course, your guidance with the departments, the construction sales tax obviously is great. Our sales taxes are good. Of course, I'm proud because being on the council for several years, we've always, some of my fellow longtime council members, we struggled raising that primary property tax, and we had to do
Yes,
it a
we
couple of
did.
years ago.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to see that you guys that we're bringing it down. We know the assessed values are higher now, so I'm really happy that you remembered that it was difficult for all of us to raise that. And so now with the assessed values high, we're bringing it down, so we're, bringing in about the same amount of money. So, but just thank you to staff, thank you to you guys and your enthusiasm and hard work.
Lisa, if I could just fill in on that and give you the credit for it. She's scheduling this same meeting to happen after we adjourn here, so you guys that are excited about it, stay here, we can hear it again.
Angel, you had a comment?
Councilmember, this is not work for me, it's fun, I enjoy it.
We can tell.
All right, well, good, and then, yeah, and thank you to your staff, thank you to your staff, Larry, also. I know it's a lot of work for everybody. When we started this, 2 months ago, 3 months ago? 3 months ago, probably now. So it's not a quick process, and your work is appreciated, so thank you. Any other comments or questions?
I have, if I may, I have some more detailed information.
You can quit while you're ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have some more detailed information on the $25 million bond resources for fiscal 23. Thank you so much to the city manager. I had a lapse of memory there for a minute. Mayor and council will recall in fiscal 22, we projected funding for the fire station, and this the $14 million total is set aside from bond issuance to fund the fire stations. We have $5 million for Treacle improvement, $4 million for Dave White improvement, and community trail improvements at $1 million for a total of $25 million in bond proceeds funded to be funded in fiscal 23.
Okay.
I stand
Great.
corrected.
Thank you. All right. Seeing no other comments, then I'm going to call for a resolution number, please. Carla?
Resolution number 5419, a resolution of the Council of the City of Casa Grande, Arizona, adopting the tentative estimates of the amount required for the public expense for the City of Casa Grande for the fiscal year 2022 to 2023, adopting a tentative budget setting forth the receipts and expenditures, the amounts actually levied, and the amounts estimated as collectible for the previous fiscal year, and the amount proposed to be raised by direct property taxation for the various purposes, and giving notice of the time for hearing taxpayers for adopting of budget and for fixing the tax levies.
Mayor McFarland, I move approval of resolution number 5419 as presented.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Carla, can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Lavender,
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston,
Yes.
Councilmember McBride,
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons,
Yes.
Councilmember Herman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Powell,
Absolutely.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, let's move into our public meetings, public hearings. As noted in the, at the start of our meeting, when we approved our agenda, we are removing item L1. So I'm going to move to item L2. This is a public hearing and consider approval of ordinance number 1178.234.1. Joe and Jacqueline and
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council.
and everybody. Good evening.
So this item is a PAD zoning request for Hacienda storage. The location of the rezone request is just south of Florence Boulevard or State Highway 287 on the east side of Hacienda Road. The current zoning is urban ranch, and in the urban ranch zone, it allows single-family residential development on 1 1/4 acre minimum size lots. It also allows agricultural activities. It permits cell towers at a height of 28 feet or under. And with the approval of a conditional use permit, it allows uses such as schools, churches, manufactured home sites, and cell towers over 28 feet tall. Just a little bit of background. Currently, this site does have an approved conditional use permit on it for a school up to 520 students. The maximum height is 28 feet, and setbacks vary depending on use. The request this evening would be to rezone the property, which would therefore replace any sort of entitlement on it, including that conditional use permit for the school, and entitle it to be a planned area development zone. And again, a PAD zone is a customized zone district. It has to be comprised of at least 5 acres, where an applicant can propose uses and development standards specific for the site. This is an 8.7 acre site that's proposed to be a PAD specifically to allow a storage facility use known as Hacienda Storage. It would accommodate RVs, self-storage, and then ancillary associated uses. The maximum height proposed is 35 feet, and the setbacks proposed are from the front property line 33 feet, and then from the sides and rear property lines, it would be dependent upon the building's height. For buildings up to 25 feet, the side and rear setbacks would be a minimum of 15 feet. And then for buildings between 25 feet to 35, there's a typo there, in height, the setback from the sides and the rear would have to be the same as the height of the building. Although this evening you're just asked to consider the zoning, the applicant did provide a conceptual site plan to show how a storage facility could look on the site while meeting the proposed setbacks. Here is a rendering of what they provided, where you see basically the buildings inform the perimeter of the site, where between the buildings and the property lines would be the landscaping. One of the advantages to this is it minimizes the amount of fencing, which could sometimes be unsightly. It's between the gaps in the building where there would be fencing provided, and that could be by way of wrought iron or CMU block to provide, the wrought iron would provide some openings to see activity in there, but it could also be CMU block to bridge the gaps in the buildings. They did provide conceptual elevation detail. The large building that you see adjacent to Hacienda in this conceptual plan would only be 12 feet in height, and the length of the building would be broken up by staggering the height slightly as viewed from Hacienda, and it basically would look like a long CMU wall. And then the tallest building, at least conceptually on this plan, is a 22-foot tall building, and what you see here is the view of its front elevation. And then these are conceptual side and rear elevations. Tonight, City Council is just asked to consider the zoning going from urban ranch to PAD, but there would be other steps included should you vote to approve this zoning. The next step would be the major site plan would have to be submitted and considered by the Planning and Zoning Commission. With that major site plan comes traffic impact analysis and engineering reports such as drainage and water and wastewater. Should the zoning and the major site plan be approved, then the final step would be to submit for site development permitting and associated public improvements that would be tied to the project, namely that area of Hacienda Road that's abutting the site. The applicant would be required to dedicate 55 feet of right-of-way and have to make certain public improvements, including its widening of Hacienda, public sidewalk, curb, gutter, and street lamps adjacent to the site. When reviewing the planned area development zone change request, it's subject to these criteria, and the staff report goes into these in greater detail, but I just want to highlight the items on the screen here. The first one is the interrelationship of the plan to different elements on and off the property. So that basically deals with compatibility. As you see, the subject site is directly east of Mission Royale, where that is predominantly a PAD accommodating single-family homes. To the north of the site, you have large lot single-family home sites. To the east, you have farmed ag land, and to the south, you have an ED2 substation. So, really the compatibility concern largely is for the property to the north and also the single-family home sites on the other side of Hacienda. So the way that they're dealing with the compatibility is providing for a landscape buffer, as I showed you on the conceptual plan on the previous slide, by providing at least 15 feet between the north building and its property line, and at least 15 feet from the east buildings and its property lines, as well as to the south. From the between the property line and the buildings along Hacienda, there would be at least 33 feet of setback and landscaping. This, coupled with the fact that they would have to do right-of-way dedication of 55 feet to make Hacienda Road a total of 110 feet, coupled with 50 feet of tract that exists between Hacienda and the back of the lots in Mission Royale, that totals a distance of about 193 feet between the back wall of the lots in Mission Royale and the first building at the storage facility, which is proposed, that particular building there is proposed to be about 12 feet tall. So staff feels that with the landscaping setback provided, that helps minimize any negative impacts that could be resulting from the storage facility. And then again, they did provide some example elevations. We would get specifics more at the time of the major site plan. However, the PAD does provide some architectural standards that calls for a mixture of building materials. So you would see a combination of CMU, metal panel system, glass, etc. One of the other criteria that we look at is conformance with the general plan. So this area is within the Casa Grande 2030 neighborhoods land use designation. Now, neighborhoods largely accommodates for single-family development. This area doesn't have certificates of assured water supply, however, so it's not likely that this huge area that you see on the screen will develop into single-family neighborhoods. What's likely is you're going to see uses such as storage facilities or commercial businesses and multifamily. There's certain parameters in which those uses can develop in the neighborhoods. A commercial site can't exceed 30 acres, and a multifamily site can't exceed basically 25 acres in size. RV and self-storage here is a use that can benefit the adjacent growing neighborhood, accommodating storage needs of the residents. And that would seem to address the fact that our general plan describes neighborhoods as a variety of interconnected residential developments with thoughtfully placed non-residential uses that offer neighborhood-level amenities and services. Self-storage is allowed in only a limited number of zone districts, such as B4 and I2. If they were to request B4 or I2 here, although it would be appropriate per staff and planning commission's position for self-storage, B4 and I2 really wouldn't be appropriate for all the other uses that you would find permitted in those zones. That's a heavy commercial or heavy industrial zone. And so to address that fact, a PAD is much better suited because it can be specific just to the storage use. It can be tailored with setbacks and specific uses, ruling out any other of those less compatible uses that you'd find in those other zone districts. One of the goals of the neighborhood's general plan land use designation is to minimize land use conflicts. And so one of the action steps is to require physical separation such as fences, berms, parks, or landscaped areas between residential and non-residential developments. And as I mentioned, they're proposing a landscape perimeter between the buildings and the property lines on all four sides. The greatest landscape perimeter is provided along Hacienda at 33 feet. Another criteria that we look at is impact of the plan on anticipated traffic. So one of the largest concerns is the fact that Hacienda is seeing quite a bit of traffic. The Mission Royale neighborhood has, on the north side that's active adult, has built out, and the family community south of Early, who uses Hacienda as its primary point of ingress and egress, is rapidly growing. So there has been a lot of concern about the traffic on Hacienda, and it will probably see even more traffic as the Mission Royale family community continues to grow. One of the benefits to development along Hacienda is that there'll be half-street improvements as each of those sites go to develop. So as I mentioned on a previous slide, when this site goes to develop, we'll see 55 feet of right-of-way dedication, an additional lane added, curb gutter sidewalk, a turn lane. So it specifically for the traffic coming and going from this site, it will be handled, and then incrementally it will help contribute to the need to improve Hacienda as other sites go to develop in the future. At the time of the major site plan, a traffic study will be provided, and this will determine the amount of trips generated for this use and how it affects the level of service, namely whether or not a stoplight will be needed at Florence and Hacienda. So we haven't received that TIA yet. That would come with the major site plan. But whatever its findings are and recommendations are will be incorporated into that plan.
Can I ask you a question, or?
Sure.
Hacienda needs to be paved all the way to Selma. And we talked earlier about the streets getting full and trying to get around. And that's one of the things that would really help if you're on the other side of I-10 and you could get to where you want to go faster if Hacienda was, we've got people down there that our equipment has to pick up trash for and do those kind of things that are in the city of Casagrand, but this is a heck of a way. And also there's a fire department going in there, right? And so you want the fire engines to be on pavement, not down a dirt road, which is what it is now. But that you really need to look at paving Hacienda.
Point noted.
All right.
And the other thing that this site will accommodate for is 2 access points as proposed. Their primary access would line up with Hancock Trail on the other side of Hacienda, and then they do have a secondary point of access down towards the south of the site that would be exit only. One of the requirements that I've mentioned is right-of-way dedication, which would be 55 feet. I do want to clarify that actually in my staff reports and in my previous presentation in front of Planning Commission, I had recognized this incorrectly as a principal arterial. But that is an error because on the west side of the section line, on the side of Hacienda that's already improved, that's 55 feet. And so to match that, there would be 55 feet on the east side of the section line. And I had inappropriately classified it as a principal where they would need a 70-foot dedication. But nonetheless, one of the recommended conditions of record is that the property owner shall dedicate this necessary right-of-way as typically required at the time of major site plan. However, it shall also be provided should the city require it earlier if requested by the city. To address one of your concerns, Councilmember Powell, if there does need to be improvements to that road sooner than later,
Yes.
this is the way we're able to get that right of way.
Thank you.
Regarding the public notification process, it did meet the requirements set out by code. Staff did receive a number of comments, and those are indicated by the stars on the map. The property owner to the north talked with me as well as the applicant, and he never expressed objection. His main concern was whether or not there'd be chain link fencing. He was opposed to that. That was his primary concern. And as I've discussed, there won't really be fencing on that side. Between the building and the property line will be landscaping. And then a number of Mission Royale residents did provide concern, including lights and glare from any illumination on the site, including signage. Traffic, as I discussed briefly on the previous slide, they felt that Hacienda is already too busy and a signal light is needed. Traffic for the storage facility could potentially avoid the making turns at Hacienda and Florence and go through the Mission Royale neighborhood to utilize the signal light that's at Mission Parkway in Florence. And so there was a concern about that. They were concerned that the buildings would be too tall, the hours of operation, and concerns that the site will be misused and the self-storage spaces will be potentially lived in. So again, some of the ways that their concerns are hopefully addressed or met is that there is a 193-foot distance between the proposed storage buildings and the backs of the lots at Mission Royale. That provides a formidable barrier in terms of a lot of the potential negative impacts. Although the height can be as tall as 35 feet, they're proposing, at least in their conceptual plan, buildings no taller than 22. And if they end up being taller than 25 feet, they have to meet a greater side and rear setback than provided. They have updated their PAD to address illumination and signage concerns. Any freestanding signage will be limited to a monument-style type of sign up to 10 feet of height. And at the time of major site plan, there'll be additional emphasis on the types of signage that they're providing, particularly on the walls, because that could be a potential concern. We really don't want the neighbors to be impacted by brightness from the signs, so the applicant is aware of that, and we will look at that more closely at the major site plan level. Regarding the traffic on Hacienda, it is designated to be a high-capacity roadway. Ultimately, there'll be 2 lanes in each direction with a 2-way left turn lane in the middle. But ultimately, a storage facility is known to be a relatively low traffic generator, and certainly a much lower traffic generator than if it were to remain Urban Ranch with the approved conditional use of a 520-student school. So this will help with the, in terms of all the possible uses that can be developed here, this is a relatively low user for traffic. And then, again, potentially additional traffic signals will be installed when one is warranted by means of a developing parcel's traffic statement. And then, of course, Florence Boulevard in that area is controlled by ADOT, so they would have to participate in that decision. At its April meeting, Planning Commission unanimously voted to forward to City Council a recommendation to approve this zone change request, subject to the condition of record I mentioned about the dedication of right-of-way. And that concludes the presentation.
Questions, anyone? Go ahead, Matt.
Just to be clear on the right-of-way dedication, the road wouldn't be built until some point in the future? Because I'm also worried about the road going north because there's residences there. So it looks like they would have to dedicate, obviously, they'd have to dedicate.
There's a lot down south too,
Yeah.
so that needs to be.
But we're not building the road now, just the right-of-way, correct?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Herman.
Are they building the half?
So at any time with this condition, there would be the ability to dedicate the right-of-way, but you're correct, there wouldn't necessarily be the roadway improvements. But at the time of the construction
Then
of
they
the
have
storage
to put the
facility, they
extra-
would have to do roadway improvements abutting their site. But it does get tricky when you have to transition from areas north and south that aren't developing. So they would have to do a combination of striping and basically scalloping the road so it transitions back from what would be a 2-lane north and south to a 4-lane ultimately.
Go ahead, Donna.
Just a comment, you had mentioned, and I know that people have been really concerned about the Florence and Hacienda intersection. And I know that we all have known about some of the crashes and fatalities that have taken place there. Anyway, has there already been talks started with ADOT? For some reason, I recalled that there might have been about, the concerns that citizens had about having a light there. Has that already not started at some point?
Councilwoman McBride, there have been a number of discussions that have taken place related to signalization of that particular intersection. Much of it is being driven by the warrants to actually install the light and the traffic signal itself. And so I know, Kevin, I don't know if there's any more detail on that today, but ultimately we're relying on the analysis that's been done to determine when we reach that point and actually which development may be responsible for installing it and the appropriate share of the costs associated with the construction of that light.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any other questions? All right, thank you. All right, then this is a public hearing, so I'm going to open the floor to anybody who might be here to speak about this. Is there anyone here? Go ahead. Give us your name and your address. And
Stephen, can you open up the applicant presentation? I have it in the drive.
Mayor McFarland, Chair members, I am John Gillespie. I represent the property owner. I'm with the law offices of Pugh and Lake, 1744 South Val Vista in Mesa. Happy to be here tonight. I thought James did a great job covering a lot of the considerations with this site and this development. We are a zoning case tonight. We'll go back through major site plan to work out some of the specific details that have been raised by neighbors that I think we'll go through that process with your P&Z. I want to be respectful of your time tonight, so I don't want to take up any more time than I need to. I'd love to be able to maybe reserve some time if anyone has comments from the public to address, and I'm here to answer any questions for you. I'll go through this just quickly. What Casagrand's getting from this proposal is they're getting a storage use that is in high demand for residents. Will improve the quality of life of our residents here in the city. The PAD is a specific zoning tool that the general plan foresees that in this area to limit the uses just to a specific gamut of what we can do there. So it's not a blanket commercial zoning or industrial zoning. So we know what we're going to get at this site. We do have a desirable site plan. It is conceptual at this point, and will be the details will be hammered out in the future. But it really conceptualizes. Let's put buildings around the perimeter, the RV parking interior to the site. The elevations are a nice mixture of materials, and I think the architects are doing a good job on that. And then just in terms of the traffic and concerns, we will do a traffic analysis with the major site plan, and we will take our share of improvements to this street and to the light if that's what's warranted. I do think it's this is some preliminary research that I did just with our IT that just kind of shows that the use is not seen as a big traffic generator. Noise and light will have to comply with the standards of the city, and we have some stipulations in the narrative that talk about signage, sizing, and we worked with staff on that. And I just encourage you to follow the recommendation of planning staff. They've done a good job on this, and the P&Z who's recommended your approval. And I'll answer any questions if we have any.
Mr. Powell?
I just would note that a lot of the people are on Selma Highway on the south side. And there's quite an area of people that live out there. And they're really upset because there's a dirt road you can go all the way down to on Selma Highway, or you could get on the pavement once you pave Hacienda. And it takes you right down to Selma, which is going to be, it's going to be an arterial in the future, because it's just another way to get around Casa Grande and not have to drive through it and have these kind of issues going. So I think the people around there that use it are going to put you way up there if you can get that paved. They've waited for a long, long time to have the pavement done.
Yes, thank you, Member Powell, and I think it's great to see that some development is happening on this site that will contribute to improvements on Hacienda. And as Member Lavender had alluded to, we will defer to staff on safety considerations for how those improvements are put in, and I think we're contributing to making Hacienda a better street.
But Hacienda would be something that your group would be happy to look at, the importance of paving it.
So, Member Powell, my take on that would be that the development needs to bear the cost that it puts onto the infrastructure. And so, in terms of, I don't know if you're asking maybe if the developer would be willing to pave up and down Hacienda more than our site. That would be not typical for a development of this size to trigger that type of a improvement, but certainly the impact that we are causing will.
It's all right. You're going to do your section, right?
We'll do
You're
our
gonna
section.
do your part. Okay. All right. Any other questions on
Well,
this?
just to tag on to that, what's going to hurt you on your section is it goes down to Selma.
No, he doesn't go down that far. He's just up by Mission Royale, on the north part.
Yeah, but you're south of it, aren't you?
No.
We have 8 acres now,
Your
Paul,
last,
so we're 8 acres
when you drive out of there the other day, you drive at the south end of it.
No.
The majority of our users would be expected to come from Florence, onto
Well, there'd be some that
Hacienda.
would come down Florence, but if they had a road that was Hacienda, they would go from Florence all the way through.
Certainly a possibility to go south or come from the south, correct. But our site is an 8-acre site, so our stretch of frontage along Hacienda is quite limited compared to how big that stretch
We
is.
appreciate your input, so thank you. Is there anybody else here who would like to address this matter? All right, James, thank you for your thorough explanation. Carla, can I get I'm going to close the public hearing and ask for an ordinance, please.
Ordinance number 1178.234.1, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Casa Grande, Arizona, amending zoning ordinance number 1178 and its subsequent amendments by changing the zoning from urban ranch to planned area development on property located generally south of the southeast corner of Florence Boulevard and Hacienda Road, Casa Grande, Arizona.
Mayor McFarland, I would move for approval of ordinance number 1178.234.1 as presented.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Carla, can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Lavender,
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston,
Yes.
Councilmember McBride,
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons,
Yes.
Councilmember Herman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Powell.
No, I'm gonna get the people that live out there with you guys, so you can see what needs to be done on the paving. But I will talk to them, and you can meet with them, at a future time, and then you have a fire station out there, you've got to be able to get heavy equipment out on that road quickly, and that's one of the things that would get them to a fire site quicker either way, so. As I say, I will get with you.
Mayor McFarland,
Yes. All right. Next item is item L3.
Have you ever been down that road, Hacienda, all the way to Selma?
Good evening, Mayor, council members.
Yeah, I know what's coming.
Michelle Horn is requesting a zone change from urban ranch to general industrial, I-2, for approximately 204 acres of land generally located north of the Courtson Road alignment and west of the Burris Road alignment. You can see it highlighted in yellow on the screen. It's just north of the Frito-Lay facility.
And that's adjacent to our wastewater treatment plant, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, just to the west of it.
To the west.
General plan has it in the manufacturing and industry category. The current zoning is urban ranch as mentioned. Proposed zoning is I-2, general industrial. When looking at the review criteria for a zone change, we looked at that it's in conformance with the general plan. We covered the three items on your screen. All has been covered in your staff report, so we're just going to concentrate on one item tonight. And that's our general plan goal in our manufacturing and industry category, AMI-5, is to encourage appropriate and responsible industrial development in appropriate locations, which this site does represent an appropriate location and is an expansion to our manufacturing and industry category and our industrial corridor. One thing I do want to point out tonight that is the site is impacted quite a bit by our flood zone. It's in our 100-year flood zone. We're not sure of that elevation now, but when they go to develop the site, they will come up with a strategic plan showing what elevation is impacted by the flood, and then you do have the ability to still develop this site. You just have to raise up the buildings 1 foot out of that floodplain. So there is still development opportunity on the site. In regards to notification, we met or exceeded all requirements by the city code. We did not receive any comments on this particular item.
Yeah, good.
In conclusion, the Planning Commission on a 6-0 vote recommend the City Council approve the zone change request, DSA 22-00001, from urban ranch to general industrial with the following conditions. Again, that's our standard condition for a right-of-way request. I'd be happy to clarify any items that you guys might have questions on.
So the right of way would be West Courtson, basically.
They also have some on Burris, and depending on the development and what they do, there may be additional right-of-way, but we do have some Courtson and Burris.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody have any questions? All right, this is a public hearing, so I'm going to open the public hearing. This is on item L3. Is there anyone here to speak on this matter? All right, seeing nobody jump up, then I'll close the public hearing and call for an ordinance number, please.
Ordinance number 1178.423, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Casa Grande, Arizona, amending zoning ordinance number 1178 and its subsequent amendments by changing the zoning from urban ranch to general industrial, I-2, on property generally located north of the Courtson Road alignment and west of the Burris Road alignment, Casa Grande, Arizona.
Mayor McFarland, I move approval of ordinance number 1178.423 as presented.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Carla, can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Lavender,
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston,
Yes.
Councilmember McBride,
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons,
Yes.
Councilmember Herman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Powell,
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, next is L4. This is really just changing the term length on our Board of Adjustments, so who's going to speak on this? Oh,
I am.
Jacqueline, go ahead.
And then there was one.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Next item on the agenda is the zoning code text amendment regarding the Board of Adjustments. This request is to amend section 17-08080 regarding the membership of the Board of Adjustments and to modify its membership from 4 years to 3 years. The reasoning behind this is to change this to be more consistent with the city's boards, commissions, and committees. As you know, the city's in the process of revamping its boards, commissions, and committees, and this is making it more consistent wherever possible. So with that, Planning Commission made a favorable recommendation to City Council for adoption of the proposed ordinance amending section 17-08080.
Yeah, just to remind everybody, we had a study session on this, and we talked about all the boards and kind of making them consistent where we could. We weren't able to do that on all of them, but this was one that we could change from 4 to 3 years. So, any other comments or questions on it? Anybody have any? Okay. And thank you, really, to Paul and all of you guys for getting this done. It's really kind of coming together, and I appreciate all the work on the boards and commissions. So this is a public hearing, so I'm going to open the floor on L4. Is there anyone here who would like to address the council on this item? Okay, seeing none, then I will call for an ordinance number, please.
Ordinance number 1397.17.56, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Casa Grande, Arizona, amending section 17.08.080, membership of chapter 17.08, administration of Title 17, zoning of the City of Casa Grande Municipal Code to change the term length of the Board of Adjustment members, establishing the severability of the various sections of the ordinance, and establishing an effective date.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ordinance 1397.17.56 as presented.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Carla, can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Lavender,
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston,
Yes.
Councilmember McBride,
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Powell,
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, next item is L5. Again, another public hearing. This is for ordinance number 1397.17.57. Again, this is a part of our reorganization for our boards and commissions. Go ahead, Jacqueline.
Yeah, so this is a zoning code text amendment regarding the Historic Preservation Commission, and similar to the previous text amendment, it's revamping its boards, commissions, and committees to make them more efficient. And one of the proposed changes is to disband the Heritage Committee and include their duties regarding the naming and renaming of city facilities into the Historic Preservation Commission. So this amends 17.07.170, duties of the Historic Preservation Commission, and adding section 17.62.145, procedures for naming and renaming of city facilities. Planning Commission gave a favorable recommendation to City Council for adoption of the proposed ordinance amending section 17.08.170 and creating section 17.62.145.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, seeing no questions from here, this is a public hearing, so I'm going to open the floor to item L5. Anyone here like to address the council on item L5? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and we'll call for an ordinance number, please. Gloria. Carla.
Ordinance number
Write myself a big note.
0.57, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Casa Grande disbanding the Heritage Commission, amending Chapter 17.62, Historic Preservation of Title 17, Zoning of the City of Casa Grande Municipal Code to add a new section describing the process for the naming and renaming of city facilities, amending Section 17.08.170, duties of Chapter 17.08, administration of Title 17, zoning of the City of Casa Grande Municipal Code to add additional duties for the Historic Preservation Commission, establishing a procedure for the approval of the minutes from the final Heritage Commission meeting, establishing the severability of the various sections of the ordinance, and establishing an effective date.
Mayor McFarland, I move to approve ordinance number 1397.17.57 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Carla, can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Lavender,
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston,
Yes.
Councilmember McBride,
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons,
Yes.
Councilmember Herman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Powell,
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, next is L6, public hearing, and this is considering approval of a resolution adopting our community development block grant. Ms. Allen? You can start without it.
Staff is recommending the approval of the proposed program year 2022 CDBG annual action plan based on an estimated allocation, or on an allocation of $446,257. We had anticipated a funding allocation of $475,000, but we got less this year. So the allocation amounts were amended in the annual action plan that was attached to the request for council action. So in preparation of this year's annual action plan, we held a public meeting at the Mondo Anaya Center, Seeds of Hope, on March 2nd, 2022, and 11 participants were in attendance. This public meeting notice was published in English and Spanish in the Dispatch and on the city website on February 12th, 2022. Comments and discussions during the public meeting were related to wellness clinics, sidewalk improvements, computer labs for employment, transitional housing for victims of abuse, ADA ramps, rental and utility assistance, code enforcement, and owner-occupied housing rehab. CDBG application period was open from March 3rd through March 25th. Applications were posted on the city website and emailed to agencies per request. Upon review and evaluation of all submitted applications, the review committee is making the following recommendations to be included in the program year 2022 annual action plan, which has been modified with the new funding amounts. As you know, CDBG national objectives is to benefit low to moderate income persons, aid in the prevention or elimination of slums or blight, and meet a need having a particular urgency, such as urgent need. So this year we are recommending to council that we provide up to $66,000 for public services. Oops, I got to go back the other way. We would like to fund Seeds of Hope, a senior connections program for at $16,920. The Boys and Girls Club for their Lencola summer program, which would only be for the month of July for this funding because it doesn't start until July, for $4,725. The Casagrand Police Department to continue their homeless intervention program at $6,615. The Opportunity Tree for their creative aging program for $7,560. Community Action Human Resource Agencies for their homeless services for $14,100. And Against Abuse for the Casagrand Housing and Support for Abuse Victims. Against Abuse is also including money to partner with Casagrand Elementary School, Casagrand Alliance, for any folks that come into their network there that need support with housing or emergency shelter. They've worked out a collaboration to work together to fund them, to get them emergency help. We also want to work on Cruz Park. There's some sidewalk that doesn't connect over there where the Seeds of Hope and the park are. So they'd like to, Public Works is requesting funding to complete that sidewalk project and also to consider working continuously on the West Park sidewalk because this year we were only able to fund one section of it. So they're asking for $130,000. Our program for owner-occupied housing rehab is asking for $93,882. Continue with our code enforcement officer at $66,194 and planning and administration at $89,251. That has a max of 20% of the annual allocation. We did post that proposed plan online. And I did receive one comment. Somebody was asking about if we could fund a park at Colonial del Sol. And unfortunately, that's not city, it's county, so I referred them to the county. But that's the only comment I've received in relation to our plan. I just wanted to show a few pictures. This is the Opportunity Tree. They do a creative aging program. That's the one where they go down to the Art Mobile downtown and they focus on art projects, trying to teach letters and colors and kind of everything where it correlates. So we were fortunate enough to go down there and see their program in action. So this is Billy. He agreed to take a picture for us. He's very happy. So he painted that apron, and that day they were there working on a different art project. So they keep bringing them back. This is Seeds of Hope, their Senior Connections program. They have their sewing machines out. And this is a day that we also went for a site visit, and they were playing bingo. And we were happy to see that there were males in the group. So we were very happy to see that. This is the sidewalk, the West Side sidewalk improvement. I happened to go out and take a photo of it the day, and there was a lady already walking. So, and then the Cottonwood Gardens streetlight project has been completed, so I just thought I would highlight that. There were 10 solar lights put out there. And we have several infrastructure projects still underway. The Rotary Park, that's just taking a little longer than expected. And Dorothy Powell Senior Center, they have removed all of the old flooring, put the new flooring in, started the bathrooms, but they're having issues with supplies. So hopefully they'll finish that soon. And then, of course, you see the City Hall ADA improvements out there. And any questions, just let me know.
Anybody have any questions? Mary? Okay. Thank you, Mary. All right, this is a public hearing. So I'm going to open the floor to any comments that anybody might have. All right, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and I'll call for a resolution. Please, Carla.
Resolution number 5418, a resolution of the Mayor and Council of the City of Casagrand, Arizona, adopting the Community Development Block Grant CDBG Program Year 2022 Annual Action Plan.
Mayor McFarland, I move approval of resolution number 5418 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Can I please get a roll call vote, Carla?
Councilmember Lavender,
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston,
Yes.
Councilmember McBride,
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Powell,
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right. Next item is item L7. Again, a public hearing. This is adopting and declaring public records our consolidated fee schedule.
Stephen, do you have a presentation?
Steve, you need some help over there?
Some of Brett's coffee.
He's pacing himself.
I'll make this very quick, too. Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
Oh, and you don't have.
Go ahead and start.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start. Staff recommends that Mayor and Council approve the City Council or City's Consolidated Fee Schedule that will be effective July 1st of 2022. As it was highlighted in the tentative budget schedule, there are fee increases to animal control, or actually fee decrease to animal control for unaltered cat. And there's also community service fee to eliminate the fees for related to community or evergreen community. Planning and development added administrative and building permit fees. Police added an incident video recording fee. Public Works and Sanitation added residential landfill fee or landfill rates. And Public Works wastewater also added the word sewer to the fee description, and that would be for billing. Also, I would like to let you know that per the Arizona revised statute, we went ahead and posted a public notice to raise various consolidated fees for the schedule of 2022-2023 fiscal year was posted to the city's website and all social media outlets on February 17th of 2022. A notice of intent was posted on the city's website and all social media outlets on April 14th of 2022. The effective dates for these 2023 consolidated fees, which are posted on the city's website, will be July 1st, 2022. Airport consolidated fees will actually be presented on June 20th of 2022 at the council meeting. Do you have any questions?
Yes.
Roberta, remind me what the incident fee is for the police?
The police incident fee is, here we go.
Isn't it a recording?
It's for body, yeah, it's $35, and it would be actually to
retrieve
the videos for the body cameras. This is in conjunction with Axon.
That just seems extremely low for what I would think the process to go through something like that. Obviously, I'm going to vote for it tonight. I think that's something we may want to reconsider, especially as maybe on an hourly rate for what it would cost our legal as well as our police to do something like that.
Because it has to be redacted and all that other
Right.
good stuff too, doesn't it? Or is that done before, anyway?
And last year, we actually did include a fee for redacting for PD. We did include that for
Okay,
last
so
year.
it's in there in addition?
Yes,
Okay.
this is an addition.
Okay.
And Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Lavender, specifically on a non-commercial request, the city cannot recover fees associated with labor, or it's simply materials that are necessary to produce that particular video.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from anybody? Thank you.
Thank you.
So this again is a public hearing, so don't go away. Is there anybody in the audience who would have a comment on item L7? All right, seeing none, I will close the public hearing, and I'll call for a resolution number, please, Carla.
Resolution.
Now you can go.
Resolution number 5420, a resolution of the Council of the City of Casa Grande, Arizona, adopting and declaring as a public record that certain document filed with the city clerk and entitled Fiscal Year 2022 to 2023 Consolidated Fee Schedule effective July 1, 2023, authorizing the city manager to provide for the temporary reduction of rates and establishing an effective date.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 5420 as presented.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Carla, can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Lavender,
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston,
Yes.
Councilmember McBride,
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons,
Yes.
Councilmember Herman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Powell,
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, that concludes most of tonight's business. We have reports remaining. So I just want to thank everybody and staff for all your work tonight. Thank you. Mr. Lavender, we'll start with you.
Well, Steve, you're not off the hook yet, right? Before, Steve. All right. Well, before I start, Roberta, I want to congratulate you on the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award that you I've known Roberta from a long time, from she worked for the school district, and I'm proud of the work that she's done, as well as your department. Congratulations. Mayor, I know last week you were traveling to Washington, D.C., and one of the many things that I admire about you is your commitment to your family. And while you were gone, your granddaughter, Dylan, was put on our B wall. And so you weren't able to be there because you were representing all of us in Washington, D.C. But I want you to know that you were there in spirit, and your granddaughter certainly represents you. And she's an extraordinary student in our school. And we're looking forward to another ceremony this Thursday. And Bob, Mr. Huddleston's going to be out.
Oh, excellent.
On Thursday as well. So, but congratulations, Mayor.
Thank you.
You have a beautiful family there.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. Thank you, Jeff. All right. Okay. Donna? You've
Just
got me flabbergasted.
a couple things. This is National Police Week, so if you see any of our local law enforcement, please thank them for their service. Also, the Elks Lodge is going to be hosting the Run for the Wall veterans are going to be making their way cross country. They'll be in Casa Grande on Wednesday, about 6 o'clock. And the Elks is going to be hosting some dinner for them. And they're on their way to Washington, D.C. For the Vietnam Wall. The last thing I have is I just wanted to mention we've had quite a bit of graffiti in town the last month or so, and including on the wall that's being built out at the park for the veterans group. And hats off to the police department for trying to get that taken care of and doing some surveillance out there. And also juvenile court's going to be helping do the wall cleanup and paint that. And I just really, for the community, if you see something, say something. It is not something that the city can do by themselves. And if you see somebody doing something like that, please, please make sure you call so we can take care of it, because this is just not who we are. This is not acceptable in Casa Grande, and we need to get a handle on it now. So that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Donna. Matt?
Thanks. Just a short one tonight. We were with the Youth Commission all day, all morning Saturday until about 1 p.m. We interviewed 11 returning members and 27 prospective members, which is our biggest one that we can remember.
Awesome.
For 16 seats, so it was very tough. The Youth Commission votes on who gets to be on the Youth Commission. As always, it is solely driven by the youth, everything we do in our commission. So they had some tough decisions to make, and they'll be getting the letters out in the next week or so, thanks to Carla, who's helping me as always. And then I got the opportunity, they had the Garden of Sunshine memorial that evening, and then I got the opportunity to go out to the Pinal 40 Gala, which supports a lot of our local scholarships and football team and stuff, and that was quite an impressive event. I'm sure you'll hear more about it, but it was a lot of fun, and Lone Star played, and it's really neat to have that, helping our community.
Thank you, Matt. Mr. Powell?
I'm just so happy to be here, Mayor. I don't care if you go another hour.
I do.
We do.
Yeah, I think it might have a mutiny if we did that. Lisa?
You're just so energetic today. He's a little feisty today, too. Not a whole lot, but I did want to, the Faith Alliance, Deputy Chief Leos, as I've mentioned to you guys before, has been very proactive with our group on the homeless and specifically the immigrants that are coming over. So he wanted to make sure that, the Faith Alliance is going to be able to help out with the U.S. Title 42 COVID health legislation is expiring on Monday, the 23rd. And so what that means is that the immigrants are no longer sent directly back to Mexico. So the Border Patrol will be releasing some of the immigrants into some of the communities. So he has a relationship with the LDS Church. And so the LDS Church is, if they are released in the city of Casagrand, he will be contacting them, and they're going to take them up to Mesa to the International Rescue Mission because they have a notice to appear until they get them, able to appear. So the request from him, the police department, is if there's any other churches or any people that would like to volunteer to be on this list, that way when and if people are released in our community, there are people that the police department can call and they can transport them to Mesa until their notice to appearance. So just wanted to put that out there. If you are involved in any church, any organization, or you personally would like to be on this list, Deputy Chief Leos and the chief are looking for those partnerships. So, and then other than that, just, this is the time for graduations, and I'll tell you, I'm sure you guys have seen this, we've gone 2 years with no graduations for many people. One of my kids, 2 of my children didn't get a graduation, but it's so nice to see these students now that are having their regular graduations and proms, and so I wanted to congratulate all the college graduates, and we have high school graduates coming up too, so congratulations to all of those.
This week.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Bob?
So I spent part of my day today updating my calendar, and so I was going to give you a list of things to plan to attend in the next couple of weeks. The dedication to the Union Pacific Railroad overpass or underpass, depending on your perspective, is June 2nd at 8:30. I'll plan on being there. Also, APS is having an energy update for elected and community leaders, June 8th at 9 a.m. out at CAC. I'll plan on attending that. And also, Larry had asked us to RSVP if we were interested in a tour of Cactus Mine, and I am, and I did, so things to do.
All right.
Thank you.
And I did want to additionally give a shout out to the finance department and really your staff, Angel. This Government Finance Officers Association Distinguished Budget Presentation Award. Well done. Congratulations.
Very good.
Also, I know Larry's been working on this. This is our kind of a city culture thing that the staff has put together, and I think it's pretty well done. And I hope we post that on our website for the community to see, because it's a good piece, and it really is, building a better community. That's what we're about. That's why we're all here. And stronger, united. So those are just some of the key points. There's a lot more, but I'm not going to read them all. The other thing that I wanted to highlight as well is I was in Washington, D.C. last week, and got to see a lot of our folks back there. Got to see and talk to all of our senators, so Senator Sinema and Senator Kelly. I also met with Tom O'Halloran on Thursday before I flew out. But all of them know about I-10 widening. And all of them know that we applied for a mega grant. And all of them are pushing for it. So if we can get that $300 million from the mega grant, then we're good to go. And they can combine the project into one project instead of 4. And we can start in 2023 to widen I-10. So
that area would probably be the McFarland.
I think it's already. I think it's already named after the Pearl Harbor I think it's called the Pearl Harbor.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, it's already got a name. Name the bridge, though. We can quit calling it the Gila River Bridge, except it's on tribal land. We talked about the CHIPS Act. I don't know if everybody's aware of that, but the CHIPS Act is a national program to help promote and get our chip manufacturing up to speed. Because right now, if you're all aware of it, there are no cars, there's no computers, there's anything that has to do with a chip, we are behind the 8 ball. So the government and our industry wants to fix that, and it's evident by all of the cranes that you've seen up in Phoenix, especially with Intel, and also with TSMC, which is Taiwan Semiconductor. It's like a $49 billion project up in North Phoenix, and we are seeing some of those support industries here. I can tell you that there's 3 for sure and 2 other potential. So they are having an impact on Casagrand as well. But just to give you an example, a new car, a gas vehicle today uses about 12,000 chips. An electric vehicle uses 24,000 chips.
Wow.
Chips, individual chips. So it's important, and we need to continue the work on it. I did meet with the National Science Foundation. I met with the cybersecurity folks. We talked about even ED2, smaller electric districts, and their need for security. So there's going to be some effort here in the state to get with some of the smaller utilities and make sure that they're all working together and looking out to themselves and working with APSs and SRPs of the world. Because cybersecurity is such a huge deal right now. They can take down a state just by hacking it. Infrastructure, Homeland Security, Department of Interior, met with the Bureau of Reclamation. We talked about water, Mr. Powell, and your pipe came up in the conversation.
Thank you, sir.
We talked about Department of Labor, apprenticeships. They're huge. The new thing now is apprenticeships. So I'm interested to see what they come out with, because we already are kind of doing that, internships, apprenticeships, but it's actually now a department back in Washington, D.C. There's a department for everything in Washington, D.C. Met with the Department of Commerce as well, and we talked about broadband, and really their goal is broadband for all, for everybody. So that is the goal. There is $5 million in planning dollars available for every state, and then there's another $100 million a minimum for every state. So we need to, and I'm on the board for the state broadband, so we'll be part of that conversation, and hope we'll actually be out trying to count to see who doesn't have broadband, because that's going to base it on, or basically determine how much additional dollars we get from the feds. So it was a good week. Got to see some of the Capitol. It's hard when you're in and out of federal buildings, and it's like I'm going through the airport like 15 times. Security strip searches. It was pretty crazy. Anyway, this Friday, this Friday, I am one of the panelists on the Pinal Partnership Breakfast, which is going to be over at the Florence Library. So if you're interested, it starts at 7:30. It's also, I think, live streamed, and it'll be a panel on the Pinal Regional Transportation Authority. So it should be interesting. Update. I'll be giving an update. I think our county attorney will be also part of that conversation. And then we have the Chamber Outlook Luncheon this Friday. It starts at 11. It's Francisco Grande, and I'm the guest speaker there, and I'll be talking about our GEO bonds and about our charter changes. So that will be the topic of my conversation. So that's probably enough. Everybody wants to go home. Except for Mr. Powell. He wants to stay for another hour. So you can stay, but just turn the lights out when you leave, would you? Oh, like you're doing now? All right. Thank you, everyone. Good night, meeting adjourned.